the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes, and this is one of those episodes where Ryan Dunigan isn't here, but I got super special guests returning again. Buddy, how about you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Buddy. It's been a little bit. We're not talking about wrestling this time either, so it's a little bit different.
I know. Sadly enough, I bring this up with Wes, too, the other guy that we're supposed to be doing the Retro Slam Masters podcast.
One day.
They never really went anywhere. I think we each did one episode, and that was about it. And ours was just the one where we did no holds barred on here.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like, what's the thought that counts? Like when you get a shitty
we got
gift.
started. You know, there's something to be said about like at least trying. I guess, even though I know some people put down trying, but I feel trying's better than not doing anything at all.
Well, it's like when you get a shitty gift for Christmas and somebody's like, well, it's the thought that counts, you know, just be happy with that.
Yeah, it's like, you know.
It's the thought that counts. We tried.
Yeah. You at least used it once. That's all that matters, you know? But Buddy had an awesome idea, something that was like, oh, this is kind of a cool one. And I guess we sort of did something like this a long time ago. We do a video games. Buddy's like, hey, dude, let's make a top 10 list of our favorite bands and have a countdown from it. And I was like, dude, that's a great idea. We so got to do that.
Yeah, I was kind of inspired from my buddy Nick does a podcast, Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast. Pretty fun little podcast. I don't know if I'm allowed to give a shout out.
You can't beat rock and wrestling.
No, I don't know if I'm allowed to give a shout out, sorry.
Oh, I give more shout outs than anybody probably, so I'd say shout out all you want.
Sweet. Well, there you go, Nick, if you're listening. I'll refer it to you, but yeah, Nick did a top 10 favorite albums, and I was like, man, that'd be a fun idea. We should do something like that.
Well, Chris Jericho was doing that for a while, where he'd just bring on random people and they'd just talk about their favorite albums. I'm like, that's kind of a cool idea. He's like, he had Stone Cold do it, and he went through, I think it was Slash. No, not Slash. It was
He's had a lot.
Yeah, he had a handful of guys where it's just like they just brought him on.
Duff McKagan.
Or they're doing the thing where they're doing trying to find the perfect album. That was one of his kind of like podcasts, and I'm like, that's kind of an interesting one because. You know, if you really kind of break down an album, it's like, what is, like, the perfect album? Like, there's a lot of ones that go, oh, yeah, that's a total perfect album. But if you did kind of really want to break it down, be like, well, there's that one song on there that's just kind of, okay, it's not bad, but compared to the rest of them. That's
really tough. Like, if I were to have to guess, like, a perfect album, I'd probably say Inspiration by William Hung is the closest it's going to get. Like, that album, top to bottom, is amazing. Well, and he throws in little words of wisdom throughout the album, too, so it's just beautiful. He sings She Bangs, and you get a bunch of good stuff on there.
He's good stuff. Well, it's like, I think of like Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. That's one you really can't go wrong with.
That'd be up there for sure.
You know, it's just one of those like solid albums all the way through and so on. But I think this top 10 list of just seeing like our music ones. I haven't felt like I've done like a music podcast in a long time. We used to do these ones where like we would just talk about like a musical artist, but I think people would see it on YouTube and think we had like Chris Cornell on the show or Tom Morello or something.
It'll probably get us some more plays though.
It did. There's like 5,000 views on that Chris Cornell one, and I know for a fact it has nothing to do with us talking about Chris Cornell and like, you know, this would have been like before he even died. This is like 6 years ago. So the first episode was like, do we like Chris Cornell? Let's do like a Chris Cornell retrospect.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, Chris Cornell's on the interview? Oh, wait, it was just two random clowns talking about Alice Cooper? No. Like,
yeah, exactly. It just gets kind of goofy like that. But you want to just do the thing where we start from number 10 and count our way to 1, and we go back and forth between you go, I go, you go, I go.
Yeah, I was thinking I'll let you go first. You know, you're the pro, and then I'll follow your lead.
Okay, so the way that I'm going to start this one off, my number 10, and this is kind of like my ballsy choice, or it's sort of ballsy compared to the rest of them, but I'm going with Jim Croce. It's my number 10.
I don't even know who it is.
You know who Jim Croce is?
No.
He's got that song like Message in a Bottle. Or not Message in a Bottle. God, I just totally drew a blank there. Time in a Bottle. Not the Police. He's got things like, you saw Django Unchained, right?
Yeah. It's been a while, but yeah.
He's got a song in Django Unchained. I'm just drawing a blank around that. I don't know why. Maybe it's just too late in the day on titles. But got Working at the Car Wash Blues. He's got it's one of those ones where I just have always thrown it on when I do like my comic books and so on. I've listened to it my entire life, and you know he's only got like 3 regular albums, a live one, a greatest hits, and then there's technically 2 previous albums. They're under like you can't really just find them on anything. You have to like buy them on CD, and they're like $25. You know, used CDs, those kind of ones.
Yeah.
But he's like a singer-songwriter of the 70s. Got a bunch of like kind of acoustic / kind of story songs. So it's much different than like the rest of my list here. But
is it progressive at all, or?
I wouldn't say progressive. It's more like I could say folky. Under the similar things as like Bob Dylan and you know Bruce Springsteen when he doesn't have his band, and I would say things like even maybe even John Denver, that kind of card. Maybe not nearly as optimistically as John Denver is, because his
I heard that John Denver's full of shit. So,
well, he did go down in a plane.
It's true.
You know, so he had a hardcore death.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. Well, I checked out the Alan Parsons Project recently. It was not at all what I expected.
Yeah.
Not
Movies lead you to believe the Alan Parsons Project is going to be amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't that great.
And it's
personal opinion.
It's not there, but yeah, Jim Croce's he's just got a bunch of neat songs. It's just mostly his band's always mostly him, and he's got like one other guitar player. And I'm basing this all off that one live album that they have. So it's like him doing guitar and singing, and then there's the lead guitar player. So it's super simple, but that good kind of relaxing background chilling music.
I'm about to check it out. I'm already psyched that we're doing this actually because like that's an artist I've never heard of, and I know that you like a lot of '80s rock like me. So I was like, so I've already like kind of delved into something totally different, which is awesome.
Yeah, well, it's just one of the ones like once you hear some of his songs, you'd be like, oh, I've heard that before. Like,
yeah,
he's got some of those songs, like, maybe like 3 or 4 of them have played on like radio stations, like classic rock ones, or even like older pop stations and so on. They'd have him on there, but yeah, Jim Croce's really cool. He also died in a plane crash. You know those planes just get people. So just like John Denver, they just get people.
Yeah.
And theirs was like sad because it was like they were taken off, and it's like they didn't even get off the landing strip. It's like something like they couldn't see, and they like got caught in trees and went from there. And
wow.
Yeah, just terrible stuff. I don't know what it is. Musicians and planes should just don't mix together.
Yeah, they should stop touring and only do drive-by dates.
Yeah, exactly. But buddy, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is actually Frank Zappa.
Oh, there you go. Well, he's similar to Frank Zappa, but maybe not nearly not as hard. But he's got like kind of like some of those songs. They're like, well, Frank Zappa does everything, so you kind of everybody's similar to Frank Zappa in some way.
Yeah, with Frank, man, like I was turned on him like with my old roommate, and I was just so caught off guard with him because like I'd never heard of him, and he showed me this like I remember listening to it, and like the opening bit was like this crazy guitar solo, and I was like, holy crap, like this guy's amazing. Mm-hmm. And then I heard the lyrics and was just really confused and didn't know what I was really listening to. Yeah, some of the stuff, man, I remember like hearing the songs like The Muffin Man, which I don't know if you heard that song. That solo is phenomenal.
He's got amazing guitar solos in it. He's one of those guys that doesn't do drugs, like Ted Nugent. So that's always like some of the most talented musicians are the guys that don't do anything.
It's the same DVD. Like my roommate at the time, John, showed me this DVD of his, and he stops his limo for these random kids that had just watched the concert, just to ask them like, hey, did you guys enjoy the show? And these kids are super excited, and they're like, oh, do you want to smoke with us? And like they try to pass him out like a joint. He's like, oh, no, that's very bad for you. I wouldn't do that. And I just thought it was hilarious, but because I imagined, honestly, from watching some of that stuff, like Baby Snakes, I was like, this guy is on some stuff. I don't know what, but he's on something. And then when I learned he's never done anything at all, I was like, I love him even more.
Well, it's kind of, when you think about it, the guys that mostly don't do drugs, always they take it to the next level, because I think that's like one of those ones they want to up the ante to all the guys that are doing drugs. So that's why like Ted Nugent just looks like a wild man on stage. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or like Kiss, if you think about this, they're over the top like dressing and everything like that. Like it's like I guess probably in the 70s, every like older person's looking at this like, oh, a bunch of drug maniacs right there. It's like, nope, not at all.
Yeah. Well, especially Gene Simmons.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not Gene and not Paul. Ace and alcohol.
Maybe once or twice that drink too.
Ace, he's over there. There's a reason. There's a reason why he got kicked out of the band early on.
For now, he might be back soon.
I know, I heard that.
There's some rumors. Yeah, Frank Zappa, man. I listened to the album Apostrophe the other day, and I was cleaning out my vinyl collection, and finally got my record player working after like three years, and was listening to Apostrophe, and I was like, the musicianship alone is just phenomenal. And I know he gets a lot of praise from musicians, but I don't think the general public knows really who he is. It's kind of a shame, honestly. It's similar to who you're talking about. Like, I've never heard of him, but
yeah, like because he's got like, think about like Frank Zappa, he's got like 40 or 50 like records. It's just like
it's ridiculous.
He's got like 3 a year for like every single year he ever made music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's a cool story with him. Like he was on Warner Brothers, and he was trying to get out of his record label. And they're like, well, you used to owe us 3 albums, so he wrote 3 albums in 2 days. I was like, yeah, here you go, it's crap, here you go.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's like, even though you might say that that's crap, it's like every once in a while you'll be able to say, dude, that could be some cool songs just in that pure pressure part.
There's not.
No, yeah.
I've listened to him.
Well, I think the thing too about Frank Zappa is that you go through, I think that's what makes it hard for people. It's an intimidating like musician, because you go, oh my gosh, where do I even start? You know?
Start with Apostrophe and Baby Snakes.
Yeah.
That's the way to start. Or Chic Your Booty, that's a good one too.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
Yeah. But who do you got for number 9? Let's keep this rolling. I like it.
Let's see what we got here. Okay, we're going 80s of this one. I'm putting down Stray Cats.
Oh, I like that.
Because Brian Setzer's always like one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Like, he just always jams. Doesn't matter if it's Stray Cats, Brian Setzer Orchestra, or any of the other mini bands he does that happen to have the same. He just keeps making like Stray Cats oriented bands, but without using the Stray Cats guys.
We saw him in Ironstone with Brian Setzer, and dude, he was great.
Was it the one where he's playing with John
Fogerty.
He's playing
I
John
think it was
Fogerty?
John Fogerty.
But I thought
It's been a long time.
Like it was one of those like pop guys. It wasn't John Fogerty because I remember because I went to one.
Oh no, it was John Mellencamp.
Was that who it was?
I'm pretty sure it was John Mellencamp.
It was that because I remember it was like not John Mayer, but somebody that was kind of like it was a poppy kind of not even really rock guy, and it was like I only went to go see Brian Setzer, and then afterwards I listened to like 2 songs of the other guy. I was like. It was Brian Adams. Was it Brian Adams? Is that it?
It might have been. I'm just confused at this point.
And I just remember like it was like the Brian Adams guy was not that interesting.
I think it might have been Brian Adams.
And actually. I just was like, yep, okay. I saw all I wanted to see was Brian Setzer, and then I've seen Brian Setzer before, some of his Christmas orchestra, and he played that at the Jackson Rancheria back in the day for like people who have no idea what we're talking about, like amphitheaters. And then
so I'm seeing Alice Cooper tomorrow. So
yeah, it all works out. And then I saw Stray Cats with ZZ Top and the Pretenders in Sacramento. And the cool thing about that one is we actually won backstage passes to go meet ZZ Top. But it was one of those ones where it's like, that's already so awesome as is, but it would have only topped it off more if I would have got backstage passes to meet, Brian Setzer and the Stray Cats.
Yeah.
Because they're just one of those ones where it's like, I don't feel like there's even a bad song like in the entire bunch. Like, you listen to any Stray Cat song, it's good the whole way through. And they're almost like that kind of band where it's like, okay, I think once you take, like, this genre's already 20 years old, at least in the 80s, the 50s style genre. And now you can absorb it all your entire life and then come back and make more music and then just have it as dialed in as possible and have sharp recordings and just add those extra bit of rockabilly solos. So I feel that just almost makes it so much amazing. And then, he does sweet covers and so on of all the classics.
Yeah, I've always everything I've heard of the Stray. I like a big Stray Cats fan, but everything I've ever heard of them has always been. It's just so much fun.
Yeah,
like, it's one of those albums like you said earlier. You can just put it on the background. It's always fun.
And it's like every Stray Cat album. It's like it's just they didn't just release those like there's that one where they just kind of went off the rails for a bit. They don't
have those albums.
No, they don't. Like they're like a pure perfect band. They're probably more perfect than some of the other bands on my list, but somehow they're at 9.
Yeah, I have some bands on here that definitely aren't going to fall into any of those perfect bands. But I guess moving along, my number 9 is actually Dio.
Oh, there you go.
Dio was a tough one because it was one of those ones where I was like realizing on my list, I was like he just has to be on there. Like, and I don't know, I've never been like a diehard Dio fan. I get it. Like, he's probably, in my opinion, like 1 or 2 top vocalists and voices, at least in rock and roll and metal ever. It's between him and Halford. It's that easy.
And it's a tough choice.
It is tough, but like with Dio, man, his catalog is just so insane. And like everybody knows, of course, Holy Diver and the Dio songs. I love the song "Last in Line," and
I personally like Dio more with Black Sabbath than like with Ozzy.
Absolutely.
I know some people say that's blasphemy, but I don't know. It's just I felt like the one thing I was always kind of missing in those early Black Sabbath albums. I know it's like this is where like you lose some people, but it's like I always felt they were just a little slow. They were missing that speed. And technically, the last album they have of Ozzy, or at least in the 70s, that one's really good, but past that point, once you get the Dio ones, they're like continuously good.
It's like a totally different band.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy about them. I remember the first time ever hearing the Mob Rules. Actually, that's pretty close to a perfect album, that one. But hearing the Mob Rules, I was just like blown away. Because I didn't know what I was listening to. I was just like, this is insane. And I heard that before I ever heard any Dio. Not at the time, because I was a little bit younger than that. But man, like the Mob Rules is such a good album.
So good.
And then as I got older, hearing some of the stuff on Wayne's World with TV crimes and stuff like that, they're so good. And as I saw them with Heaven and Hell, which was basically them with Sabbath, and it was way better than when I saw Sabbath with Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, I never saw Sabbath with Dio. I saw him with Ozzy, but not with Dio.
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
really,
it's just
really
got to be pure amazing.
Yeah.
One of those weird ones. Well, let's go into my number 8 is going to be, I'm going to go a little bit newer. Here's like probably my newest band on the list, just about, is Avenged Sevenfold.
Okay, yeah.
And the weird thing about Avenged Sevenfold is when you think about it, they're almost at their 20th anniversary. That sounds so weird to say.
Yeah.
They started in 99, so next year it'll be, that's just so weird. It's like, because I remember when that band first started, when they only had I found them when they were on their second album, so they were still kind of rare, and they had, I think it was just like on, I was gonna say like Headbangers Ball, but I think it was the other show on like Fuse or something like that. Remember they had those? Yeah. That was like kind of what Fuse was. It was like metal and like extreme sports motorcycle stuff and weird things like that. And I remember just finding the Unholy Confessions music video. I think because that was the first big one they had. Because I don't think the first album, if it had a music video, it didn't have a music video that you could normally see on TV. And from that point on, I was like, that's pretty cool. And at first it was kind of like that was that time period where I was very like standoffish because I was only into like 60s, 70s, and 80s music, It's like, that was like my genre. So when it was a new band, you almost like, I had to like almost like warm up to it. And it was kind of like, well, and at that time period, everything was like, there was always the fear of emo. So if any band had any slight connection to being emo or screamo, you had to be kind of like standoffish. And I remember Avenged Sevenfold was one of those ones where you almost didn't tell anybody you liked it at first. And then I remember kind of at one point, it was like somebody said something, and like everybody's like, you know what? We actually all do dig that band. That band's really sweet. You know,
I was the same way because I forever had been in so much in like the 80s and 80s and 70s, and I still am really. But just being like, oh, this new band, like, because I heard them on Madden and was like, whoa, this band's pretty cool. They were the only, I think, non-hip hop song on the game. And I was like, I like this. Like, this is the only song I can count on. And liked it. Became a fan after that point. Never saw them live or anything. Wish I would have. But that's also like what you said. That's how I felt about Velvet Revolver too when they first came out.
I love Velvet Revolver.
Oh, they're amazing.
Amazing. Because what I like about it is it's like Stone Temple Pilots, but it's the heavy version.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost kind of like the same way you can say, and I like Stone Temple Pilots a lot, but you know, if you want like more of a rock band, I think Velvet Revolver is just the way to go. It's almost like the Dio between the Ozzy and or the Black Sabbath between Dio and Ozzy. That has that same kind of feel. Yeah,
but going back to Avenged Sevenfold, they're one of the bands that, man, I didn't hear a bad song with them. Just a lot of good music, and at the time when that style of music was kind of not so popular, not so cool, and not so edgy, and like you said, it was more like leaning towards the emo side.
Well, it was that weird one. It's like it was a fine line, like, you know, like I remember another band this band's like way more emo when you really think about the end of the day. People would try to defend it like it wasn't, but it so was, and that's
The Used?
No.
Romance?
The Used in My Chemical. That's pure emo. And at the end of the day, you know, I mean, I've learned that My Chemical Romance is a pure amazing band.
Oh, they're great.
But no, it was Vote for My Valentine.
Oh yeah.
Like that was that band that like there'd be like the metalhead guys that would like argue that one out, and like I like that band a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, look at that title. What does that title tell you? That band is like, especially that first album, it's all about like complaining about like his girlfriend and things like that. It's like that's like as emo you can get, but it's still a good album.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting time. Gosh.
Well, it's funny to Avenged Sevenfold. I remember is like seeing them. I saw them at Ozfest when they first played there, and that was on their third album. And nobody knew who they were, except for they're like handful of token fans. Like the majority of people had no idea who this band was at all, and so on like that. And then now you look at it's like they're like literally top 5 biggest rock bands of all time, like in the modern era.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's like they're like one of the only few bands that can sell out like a stadium, like in a sense by themselves.
Yeah, wow, there really isn't a lot of them.
No, because most rock bands can't do that. You know, the only people I think of like Five Finger Death Punch is like that. And
that's another pure amazing band, no matter what RJ says.
I know. RJ calls them old people rock.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm 32, they're old.
But that's my number 8. What's your number 8?
Well, we kind of mentioned them actually just now, unintentionally, but Stone Temple Pilots is my number 8 for sure.
That's always a good one too, because it's one. What I like about Stone Temple is you can throw them on, and they really just go through genres. They don't really have a genre.
No, they had a really good mix, but well, I remember I couldn't have been more than 8, I think, but at the time all that I would listen to was Alice Cooper, and that was pretty much it. Alice Cooper and a lot of Poison, and then I just remember hearing I think it was on MTV, but I remember hearing Cracker Man, and I was like, whoa, this is different. I like this. I hated Nirvana, still not a fan, but Stone Temple Pilots, just that song Cracker Man, and that whole album is just a phenomenal album.
Yep.
And that did it for me. Ever since, I've just been absolutely hooked. Like, that's one of the few bands on the bucket list that I've never got to see, and I won't see them now. It's not the same. I know they have a different singer. But...
yeah, they don't have Scott Weiland anymore, but I hear good things about that new guy. It's kind of funny, though. They made an album so fast. Scott Weiland died, next thing you know, it's like they had another album out.
Well, they had it with Chester. Chester from Linkin Park was replaced him for singing for a while.
Oh, is that where that other album came from? Okay, I didn't know who the singer was on that one. I didn't know if it was the guy that they have now, but... it
might be. I don't know. I remember... so they played at Aftershock a few years back, and I was watching wrestling, of course, and then I remember hearing that they were playing, I could hear Dead and Bloated, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to go see this.
Yeah.
And I remembered it wasn't Scott Weiland. He was alive at the time, but I was like, I heard the lyrics, and I was like, this just is not, and nothing against Chester, R.I.P., but I was like, man, this isn't what I want to see. And the music's still good. Mm-hmm. I probably would still give him a chance, actually. I'm just being a grumpy old man fan, but...
yeah, that's how I feel. It's like they're one of those ones, like, it'd still probably be cool. I always kind of feel bad because like people are like, oh, the singer's dead? Well, I don't want to see the rest of you guys.
Yeah. I have heard good things about the new singer.
Yeah.
I just was never a Linkin Park fan. I wasn't really willing to give him a shot, but...
yeah, Linkin Park was something I never got into that. Because at that time period, like, I was all, like, pure classic rock. So
yeah.
Anything kind of modern, unless it was maybe, like, Rob Zombie, was, like, kind of, like, out there for me.
Oh, that's a good honorable mention, actually. I was genuinely sad when Scott Weiland died, though. Like,
I was really bummed out.
Yeah.
Well, because the sad part, too, is we lost, like half of all, like, the major, like, grunge rock singer kind of guys.
for the most part, whenever I hear like, oh, this celebrity died or this wrestler died, like I'm just like, that sucks, and then move along. Like I didn't know him, but then when Scott Weiland died, I was like, whoa, like for me, like, that was a major part of my childhood was Scott Weiland. So like if Hulk Hogan dies tomorrow, I'm not going to work. But when Scott Weiland died, I was like, man, like it really bummed me out, and I was depressed. And I get it, he was a druggie, but
he always had issues and so on. But it is like those are like those bummers. It's because I think it's. Because here's the thing, like when David Bowie and Lemmy went, it's like that sucks. But you're like, well, they are old. You know what I mean? Like, and they're old and they lived a hardcore life.
Lemmy did really?
No, he was just all in like flowers and softness and drinking healthy drinks all day.
Lots of water.
Yeah, lots of water. But like those two guys, it's kind of like it's like that's a little bit earlier than you'd want, but like I get it. But like when you kind of go like, oh, they didn't make it to 50 or whatever. Maybe Scott Weiland didn't make it to 50, but like you still barely. It's like how about that?
Yeah. So yeah, I can't do that topic too long, so let's move along to the going on for you.
Okay, my number 7 is Steel Panther.
Ah, yes. I had to omit them actually from the list. I'm a little bit bummed about that.
You didn't put Steel Panther on there?
I couldn't, man. I couldn't. I had a tough time with that one. They deserve it.
Yeah.
They deserve everything in life, but.
And the reason like I chose Steel Panther is I feel like they kind of. Like we were saying with what band were we saying before? Stray Cats, like how they kind of like wrap up like everything that's awesome about the 50s and 60s into one band. Steel Panther is the same thing with like the 80s, like they in like the early 90s. They just really bring in that hair metal and just define it and make it just like as perfect as can be. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that band is like they absorbed it all, and now they're able to make like just the greatest versions of those kind of songs almost.
Yeah, with Steel Panther. Man, I love them so much, man. I hate when people are like, oh, they're a comedy band. I don't consider them a comedy band. They're a parody band, I think.
They say funny stuff.
Yeah. I can listen to it, 80s rock, and laugh, like, but...
Well, this is what I just feel all it is it's 80s rock without the innuendos in it. That's all they've done. They've just taken the innuendos out. That's the only thing really
They took out the innuendos and just said, hey, we're just going to talk about it.
Yeah, we're just going to say it as it is. And by that standard, I guess it's a comedy band, but... like I say, it's got a little bit of comedy in it, but I wouldn't say it's like straight comedy. That's not what their like goal is. Their goal is to be a great band, and that's how I feel like you do comedy well. It's kind of like some people would say Austrian Death Machine's a comedy band, but I just think it's like that's just a great band overall, Or same with Arnold Core, they're both just amazing bands. They might seem a little bit funny or they might say some funny stuff, but
man, I just can't say enough good things about Steel Panther. When I first found them out, it was the weirdest thing because I was on Facebook and there was an ad, a tiny little ad in the corner of the page, and I remember it said the most anticipated album of all time or debut album of all time. It's like I just thought, wow, that's really ballsy. So I clicked on it and all I saw was them, and I was like, I've never even heard of these guys, and all I listened to is 80s rock. Like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And then I clicked on the music video for Death to All But Metal, and I realized it pretty quickly. I was like, oh, okay, I think they're just like like in that 80s style. And then I listened to Community Property, and I just became hooked. I realized what they were doing, fell in love, and
I remember when I first saw Steel Panther, like I looked at that cover of them, like at a Best Buy, like when Best Buy had CDs, and it was like their first album, and I was almost like slightly offended, like, oh, these guys making fun of 80s metal. Like I was almost like, what's going on? It's like my favorite genre. You're gonna be making fun of it. And then my buddy, he got an album later, and he's like, dude, no, you just gotta check them out. I'm like, are you sure they're not just making fun of it? And it's like, oh no, they're just a legitimate band. It's just got that little bit of edgy comedy to it.
And that first album is really unique too. Like if you listen to it really closely, you can hear every song on there. Like they use riffs from other songs. Like they edit them slightly, but every one is like, and they've admitted to it. Like is straight taken from something else. Like Party All Night is one of the Y&T songs. I forget which one offhand.
Oh, is that what it goes? Because I always thought that was like it has like that Bon Jovi sound.
Yeah, that one has a lot of the Bon Jovi-ness, and there's some. That whole album is just killer. And
and it's pretty much they're like one of those bands. There's only a couple songs I would say that are just kind of okay. I think for the most part, they're straightforward. This is the one song. This is the only one song I don't like by them though. Is that Donkey Freedom one. You ever heard that one?
I've heard that one.
It's like off a movie soundtrack.
Oh.
It's the only one. It's just talking about fucking a donkey, but for some reason it's not really like the greatest song.
I don't know if you've heard it, but it's one of their like another single. Like it's not on an album, but it's I'm gonna stuff your stocking this year.
The Christmas ones are good. I like those
ones. Oh my gosh.
Mostly all their like single ones are great. Like I'm one of these days I'll have like a rarity CD I guess and put them all on there. But those ones are all good. But yeah, for the most part, they're one of those bands that like I'd say each one of their albums, like 90% of the songs are just all on key.
It's just honestly incredible musicianship too.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not a bad album.
No, and they play fantastic. They just got it all down. It's like.
And they have a brand new music video for Poontang Boomerang.
Oh, do they?
So,
Another one? Like a second music video for it?
Oh, maybe I just hadn't maybe I hadn't caught it, but it was new to me, damn it, as of 2 days ago.
I like how they had this like article that said that like they're like, oh, we were about to upload our new album and then it like got deleted. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, that's got to be a ruse for sure.
I hope it's not true, like, because it seems like their last album just came out. So
yeah, it wasn't that long ago. So I think it's just a joking thing, but I could take a new album. The only downfall they did with that last album though is I know this was like slight complaint is they released like half the songs like in singles before the full album came out. So by the time the full album came out, it's like, well, I already heard about half of it.
Yeah.
Like that's almost one's like if you're gonna do the single thing, like release like one maximum of two, but don't really do too much more than like one song to maybe tease the album. But that's about it. If you start releasing half the album, that's kind of weird.
I refused to listen to them. Like I was like, I heard She's Tight, but I was like, I'm not gonna listen to the rest.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to wait. Man, my throat's all clear, but
I want the full experience.
Yeah, I wanted to actually sit down and listen to each one on a drive or something like that, and yeah, that's a killer album though.
So
no
good.
surprise.
Yeah, but let's see, what's your number 7?
So my number 7, we're gonna stay with the '80s-ness, but it's Europe. Actually.
Oh, Europe.
It is Europe. I love Europe, and it's weird like how I got back into them. Because I mean, we all know the Final Countdown and Carrie, and my personal favorite song was "Rock the Night" of theirs.
Yeah.
But I was in a road trip when I went to Washington, and we found this awesome little vinyl store. I bought a couple Dawkins vinyls, and like the guy that was working there was like, "Bro, have you heard the new Europe CD?" And I couldn't tell if he was fucking with me or not. So I was like, "No, I haven't." Like, and he was just like, "Dude, like, have you heard anything of theirs in the last 10 years?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah.
So he puts something from War of Kings on and plays it over the speakers, and I was like, I just heard the music, and I was just like, what the hell? Like, because it's pretty heavy, like in comparison. And I thought it was a joke, honestly. I was like, this isn't Europe. He's like, yeah, this is the new Europe, and it's the same lineup forever. And like, so he's playing this CD, and I was like, this is great. Like, and I fell in love. I was like, I'm gonna buy this album. It's really good. And he's just like, well, if you buy this one, check out. I think it was last.
I was gonna be like, well, we don't have a copy of it. Like, no, it's just leading you on and being
like, showed me that last. I think it was Last Look at Eden. Another really good album. It has a song called Superstitious on it though, and that was a little bit more in the poppy scene. And I was just like, these guys are great. And then I remember I went and saw Butcher Babies in San Jose, and I saw their upcoming lineup list, and they said Europe's playing. So I was like, holy crap! I'm not gonna miss Europe.
Yeah.
So I went there, and they literally played Rock the Night, Carrie, and the Final Countdown of their old stuff, and it was all new stuff. And it was one of the best concerts I've ever been to.
See, that's kind of cool because I will say it's like I mean. It's always a fight on like when you play a concert. Like, do you do the thing where you play the hits? Because the thing is, it's like, half the people there, that's all they know. Or do you just go kind of Neil Young ballsy and say, screw it, I'm just gonna do the music I want to do. And I kind of like that when they do that a little bit more, because though there's some bands though where they won't play like any of their old stuff, and sometimes that's kind of like a little bit annoying every once in a while, where it's like, okay guys, like, are you ever gonna play any of these older songs? But beyond that, though, something that's kind of nice, because then you just get a little bit more different music going on.
And one thing I really liked they did is they really trolled the fans a little bit. So, like, I legitimately didn't think they were going to play the Final Countdown, because they played a lot of their songs. They ended it with Carrie, like, the first set, and then they were like, then they did the encore, and they came out and played Days of Rock and Roll and another song off their at the time War of Kings album. And by the way, they just had a new album came out 3 months ago that's phenomenal still. I'll have to show you later on. But then, like, I was like, wow, that's ballsy. They're really not going to play it. And a lot of people legit started to filter out. They waited, like, 5 minutes. That's a long break.
Yeah.
And then they came out with the Final Countdown. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool.
There they go. They got him there. But
oh, it was amazing. So good.
But, yeah, Europe is... See, those kind of bands where it's like, they get those, like, one or two kind of major hits, or they had about, 3 or 4. But... that's about all people ever think about, and they don't realize that some of these bands just get as dialed in as you can possibly imagine as time goes on. And, the fans know it, but beyond that, though, they're just another rock and roll band from the 80s that nobody thinks about. And
they should.
Because I think a lot of times when they're older, they make better albums. People, like, a lot of times say differently, but no, I'm like, some of these bands, like, even, like, the great bands, like, you get some of those older albums, like, because they're just musicianship is just so good, and it just keeps going and so on like that. And it's just... And I think that, sometimes bands go like, well, what do you write about when you're, like, older? It's like, well, there's multiple ways you can go about it. You can always still, if you're a heavy metal band, you, like, just keep writing about the same things you always write about. But a lot of times you can also do things even like what Motley Crue did, where, like, you sort of you almost write about it like it's like a greatest hits of your life, and now you're doing it kind of like, almost like an autobiography album. That's like what they did their last one. I thought that was a cool idea, but... Yeah,
Europe, man, like I said, just absolutely amazing band. I can't say enough good things.
Yeah, Europe always is a cool one that never gets enough credit.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so what are we on, 6 now?
Uh-huh.
On 6, I'm going with Real Big Fish.
Ooh, that's a good choice.
I know, so something a little bit different. And Real Big Fish is one of those bands, like, I discovered them through basketball, which probably, like, 90% of people in the world discovered them through basketball. I don't know where else you find out about Real Big Fish, to tell you the truth. Like,
maybe a Tony Hawk game?
Yeah, I think they got, like, one song. Well, Tony Hawk is always the key thing for explaining any kind of ska, punk,
That's how I found 80s. Goldfinger.
Yep. That's exactly how I found Goldfinger. But yeah, Real Big Fish is one of those ones where they just have tons of music, and they're one of those ones, I think their newest album, the one that came out like 4 or 5 or 6 years ago even by now, that's like their best one. It goes to show that like a lot of times you can get that much more dialed in as you go along, but they're always fun. Like their concerts are amazing. They're always just having a good time, and I like also too because they can write about songs that can almost be kind of depressing, but they have such like an upbeat melody to them that that's almost kind of just funny in itself.
Yeah, I don't have as much knowledge. Everything I've heard of them has been really good. I don't have as much knowledge of them. They played it at the show that I went to, but they played at the same time as the Dirty Heads, and so I was like, yeah, well, like, sorry, I love the Dirty Heads. I gotta see them.
I always hate that when they have concerts and they have 2 bands playing at the same time. It's like, well, what's the point of that? Just might as well just have less bands then, I guess.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I don't know.
You gotta pack those people in, brother.
I guess. That's how they feel. It's like, I don't know. I'm more like, I like just concerts where it's just a single band or maybe 2.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Because then you just get the more dialed in experience.
Yeah.
But no, Real Big Fish is just all around good. Like their musicianship's fantastic too. Yeah. You know, they got the full orchestra, they get the ska thing, which sometimes some people either like the ska or don't like the ska. But
I like it.
Yeah. It always takes me back to the 90s. That's how I always kind of feel. And as I said, basketball is really like, when you think Real Big Fish, baseball always comes to mind.
Yeah, and they might not even be part of Tony Hawk's, honestly.
They gotta be. Out of, like 10 Tony Hawk games, they gotta be at least in one of them.
You'd think so. They're on some kind of video game. I can almost guarantee it. Yeah,
they gotta be on there. And there's always bands or there's always movies that have kind of ska bands that are like, we wish we were Real Big Fish, but we're not.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a couple of those.
There's always those kind of bands or so on. Or then there's like, and then I think even like it's weird because ska actually goes back to like the 70s. Have you ever heard that? I fell down on the rabbit hole on Spotify and there's 70s ska, and it doesn't sound that much different. It's kind of weird. Maybe a little bit less heavy, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, with that kind of genre, I can't see it getting like much. Like I don't know. I'm gonna have to check that out because I can't really picture it differing much.
Yeah, it has just a little bit less of the pop punkness in it. That's probably the best way to describe it.
So it sounds like it might be a little bit better, personally, but
so it's more like I guess by that standard, it's more a little. I don't know how you say it's like harder or faster reggae, but because that's what I feel like ska is like the mix of like reggae, pop punk, and a little bit of rock and roll too.
That kind of reminds me of like the Bad Brains.
Yeah,
like that's another band I really love, the Bad Brains, but they had to get omitted from the list too.
There you go.
Did you do any honorable mentions at all, or
no? But I can think of some when we're doing it.
Yeah, maybe after, because this is number 6, right?
Yeah, we're on 6, so
maybe after I do my number 6, we should throw in like just like 2 or 3 honorable mentions there, just to.
We'll save them to the very end.
Okay.
That's what we'll do.
So I guess like
you're on 6.
My number 6 would be AFI.
Oh, AFI. I know
is going back a little bit of.
There you go. There's your pop punk band.
Yeah. I was gonna say like I back
after you just bash pop punk, you're like, well, guess what my next one is.
That's the moment that I said it, made a comment, and I was like, well. We're gonna go.
This sounds like the weirdest memory of AFI, but this is what I always think. There was this guy when I was in high school who was like, redneck, had a big old lifted truck and everything like that. And he had this AFI shirt on. I know this always sounds kind of weird, like AFI. Like, I think nowadays that sounds weird, but when they were just like more of a punk rock band, it was kind of like okay. And he would just wear this shirt like probably like 90% of the time. I feel like I don't even know what he wore other than this shirt. Baseball cap on, bent bill, everything like that. And then AFI came out with that with their sort of like emo album. No more AFI shirt. I never saw this guy wear it again. He probably burnt it in his backyard. But what I always think about AFI, what they did is they were literally the White Snake of the 2000s.
Yes.
Because they were that 90s band, and then when the 2000s came along, they're like, well, the genre's kind of shifted. Like, well, we could do this too. Why not? Because that's how I think of White Snake is. It's, it's deep purple pretty much, and they're just kind of like the 70s are over, and like in the 80s, like, yeah, we can do it. We can do the 80s thing. Why not? Let's go for it.
In AFI's case, like, they were like straight up like hardcore punk rock in the early 90s. They've been around a deceptively long time.
I think 92 was their first album.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like, it's like weird. Like, a lot of people wouldn't realize how long they've been around because they still look young. Like,
yeah.
They're still pretty much young guys, but some of those earlier albums are just very much just super in your face hardcore punk rock. And then, like, I remember I had heard of them, like, just here or there. I had a lot of friends that were really big into punk rock when I was just getting into high school.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember hearing oh gosh, of course now I can't think of the album, but the song was called "The Leaving Song,"
Uh-huh.
Part 2. And just being like, this isn't the same band. There's no... And then looking it up and realize, wow, this is very different. And I felt uncomfortable. Like, I was like, I don't know. Like we were talking about earlier, you didn't want to be classified with that emo stuff.
Well, yeah, there's that weird... It's that weird thing. Like, you didn't want to be caught dead with one of those. I don't know why that was. Like, when I think about it in hindsight, it just sounds like the stupidest, goofiest teenage thing you can imagine. But that's how it was in the mid-2000s.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? People, like, the second that Green Day came out of American Idiot, they just stopped listening to Green Day, I remember. There was a big old turn in that. It's like, you couldn't be caught with that anymore. And then you go to listen to American Idiot, you're like, it's a great album. Nothing wrong with it. It's fun.
I was the same way when it came out, too. I was like, nope.
Yep.
And I hear it now, I'm like, it's catchy. I like it. It's poppy.
Yeah,
it's
that's what I mean. It's good. Like, I'm not going to complain about music, but...
AFI's newest album, too, is really, really good. It's not my favorite album of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my favorite album is from the early 2000s, but it's still... And they keep changing their style. Like, they've changed it up with almost every album, and it's just like, how do they... Like, props to them, because not a lot of bands do. They're like... I feel like with Kiss, they came out with a new album, which I really like, but it's like, no, we're going to play it safe, we're going to do this.
Yeah,
and
we're going to be as 70s Kiss as possible.
Yeah. So props to AFI for changing and sticking with the different styles. And
yeah, and just going with it. There's also the other cool, this has nothing to do with, like, most people, like, not knowing, but there's that, like, Sonora urban legend, even though it's real, but, like, the AFI played here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, back in the 90s or something like that. And that's always like that. It was like that punk rock myth that you, like, was passed along. Like, no, it wasn't written down anywhere, but, like, you would hear it. And it's just like they played, I think it was at, like, the...
Mount Zion.
Was it Mount Zion?
Mount Zion Church.
Get out, dude. Mount Zion. That's... Nobody knows what that is unless you're in the area. But, like, Mount Zion, I think everybody's probably has their own Mount Zion in their town. It's just some... And what this was it was a church that had this little community hall that they put concerts on for, you know, teenagers pretty much at the end of the day. I mean, there's some older bands that maybe came into play, but for the most part, it was for everybody in high school and maybe, like, 8th grade or something like that. But it was that funny thing where it's like, you know that they're sort of doing it. They're like, well, maybe, you know, the kids will come here and they'll have a good time at a safe kind of church concert and listen to the Devil's music. Well, you know, I mean, but maybe as time goes on, they'll learn the way of the Lord and they'll come on over next door.
Well, it saved me. But I remember I drove over from Angels Camp to go to Mount Zion all the time because Angels Camp had no punk rock going on. And I remember being like 19 or 20 and being like, whoa, like there's live music, there's punk rock music going on in Sonora.
And then they had like the half because then there was like the punk rock days and then there's the metal days, and they never meshed very well with each other.
Not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
And then when Screamo came out, then you had like a third genre. Like the metal kind of dipped away for a bit, and then there was like Screamo, and then the mixture of like, you know, classic punk.
That's when I started to feel old. I was like, oh, no, I'm the old guy now. I'm 21.
The guy showing up there and so on. You know what always made me laugh is I remember one time coming back like after high school, and it was like I think it was after being in like Nashville or so somewhere, maybe not Nashville, but maybe it was like when I was in Modesto or something like that. And I could be like, dude, like maybe like Mount Zion's got a concert going on. Let's go see what's going on. It's Friday night. There's got to be something going there. I remember just driving in, and it was just like empty as can be. I'm like, what? There's no way. There was always a concert going on Friday. It was always something you could do Friday night. And looking around, and then all of a sudden I just see like cowboy church, and there's a giant statue of this horse and a cowboy riding and everything like that. I'm like, oh my god, what happened there? And then this is what I was thinking about, because you ever notice how you never see punk rockers anymore in Sonora? Like they just literally just disappeared.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like, because there used to be always the guys walking around with the leather jackets on and the studs and, you know, the mohawks and everything. They just all disappeared, and all I pictured was like almost like the scene out of Patriot where like Tavington locks them in the church. And what happened is the cowboy church, they put on one final punk rock show and they locked the church. It's like, burn the church down, Captain.
Yeah.
There was no order on this. I'm the church captain.
It reminds me of like on South Park, like the redneck dudes who say they don't like their kind around here.
Yeah, we don't like your kind around here.
Our jobs.
That's totally, because as I said, like once that turned the cowboy church, punk rockers just disappeared. I don't know what happened. Like either that or they like just like almost like Avengers, like Infinity Wars. They just like disappeared. Like no.
Well, the punk rockers aren't dead now. They just, you know, they probably have decent jobs now.
They got real jobs.
Yeah, they take naps now. They go to bed at a decent hour.
Yeah.
That's what Henry Rollins says, at least. So
I think that's kind of true. I think that genre just kind of. I think what happened is that they got a little bit old. Nobody kind of replaced them. You know what I mean? They're like the Shiners. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? They just got too old and they don't show up at events anymore.
No, we just go to sleep.
There's no young people anymore, and that's the same thing. They have the punk rockers too. It's just like there wasn't anybody to replace them. There wasn't a 15-year-old kid in line to be a punk rocker.
No, it's kind of trying to come back a few times here in Sonora, but
you never know.
One day, maybe.
One day. What are we on now? 5?
Yeah, it starts 5.
We're halfway through the list.
Halfway.
Okay, my number 5 is the Rolling Stones.
Ooh, that's a solid shout.
And Rolling Stones, one of those bands, like, they had to be on the list because I'm like, that's one of those ones where it's like, talk about having like a ridiculous amount of albums. And unlike so many other bands, like, they just continuously kept making things. You know, where a lot of those 60s bands all kind of about ended in like the 70s, you know?
Yeah.
Or if they did make albums, they made them like so stretched out apart. Like The Who, you know what I mean? It's like, they, like, all of a sudden, it's like in the 70s, they just kind of like 76 or something, they stopped making albums. And then there's like, 8 years, and then there's one in the 80s, and then it's like another 8 years before they have another one. No, the Rolling Stones always had albums, even in the 80s, even in the 90s, even in the 2000s. They just kept producing stuff.
Are they still making albums?
Probably. I bet you.
I know they're still touring.
Yeah, they're always still touring. They're always still going on, and they just got so many good songs. You hear the ones on the radio, and that's the one thing. They play those 10 to 20 songs on there, but that's just like a part of the Rolling Stones. If you go beyond that, they just got tons and tons of stuff. And they're not one of those bands where I'm not going to say they're consecutively have like just, great material. They definitely go up and down, but what I like about the Rolling Stones is they'll experiment and try out all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always, I like them a lot. Mm-hmm. I respect the hell out of them.
Yeah.
They've clearly done something right over 50-something years now. But, yeah, like the Rolling Stones, man, they just have countless albums and
so much stuff. You can just go through. That's another kind of intimidating band. Like when you first look at their lineup, and you're like, oh, where do I start? I guess you always start at 40 licks, but
it was hard. I actually just a couple weeks ago, I was like, totally legally gonna download all of their albums, and was like, I don't know where to start. There was so many, I got overwhelmed, and there's a lot of controversy. Like, oh well, what's really the first albums? I was like, I'm just gonna Spotify the best hits.
And I always said the best way to kind of go through the Rolling Stones is start in the 70s. The 70s ones is pretty much their golden decade. That's where they just were really dialed in. Even though they started in the 60s and they have great stuff in there, felt like that was almost their experimental age. And then when they got in the 70s, they knew who the Rolling Stones were by that point.
They have a killer song. It's 2000 Man. Kiss covered. Well, yes. Ace Frehley covered it. I don't know if it's on a Kiss album or an Ace Frehley album. That's a killer song.
I want to say that is on a Kiss album, though. Because
might be.
And I know Ace Frehley's the one that sings it, but I almost want to say it's either or it's on maybe one of those like special editions of like Love Gun or something where they got the extra songs.
Add a few extras.
Yeah.
But I when I realized that was a Rolling Stone song, I was pretty shocked. I was like, wow, like it's way better than I thought it'd be.
Yeah.
Like I like Ace Frehley, of course, but like I remember being told like, oh, that's not a good Rolling Stone song. And then listening to it and just being like, why would he say that? Like, and this came from a huge Rolling Stones fan.
Yeah.
So I was like, you're a weirdo, man. Like, this is a killer song.
Some people, they call themselves huge fans, but then they end up not liking so much stuff. I'm like, really? Are you that big of a fan? Like, you seem to hate the band almost more than you like the band.
Yeah. That dude in particular, man, that's all he would talk about all day. Like, we'd be like talking about music and be like, well, the Rolling Stones is like, we get it, man.
I know, and I think that's where some people get kind of burnt out on the Rolling Stones, because you do meet those like super fanatic fans that are just like a little bit too intense with it. But to me, it's one of those bands, like, it's always classic. I can always throw a Rolling Stones album on, and it might be my only, like, main 60s band on there, now I think about it, but...
Mine too.
I mean, Jim Croce started out in the 60s,
yeah.
But I think, like, all his hits that everybody knows are all in the 70s.
Yeah, the next few bands definitely... Well, actually, the next one's a little bit retro, but everything else is just started in the 60s too, so we're good.
Let's hear what your number 5 is.
So my number 5 is Buddy Guy. Ooh. Who, in my opinion, is the best guitar player of all time. Even Jimi Hendrix, when he was asked in an interview, like, hey, how does it feel to be the best guitar player? He said, I don't know, you'd have to ask Buddy Guy.
Yeah.
But, because we're talking about the Rolling Stones, it's kind of neat. There's an amazing DVD with Shine a Light from the Rolling Stones.
Directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah. And they bring Buddy Guy out to sing, I think it's Cocaine and Reefer, I think? Or Whiskey and Reefer. It's something like that.
Yeah.
And, man, like, it's crazy to watch him because he's just shredding this guitar along with Keith Richards, and like watching those two interact is really something just special. Awesome. Like just seeing that image is awesome. And then he's like Mick Jagger lets Buddy Guy sing, and it's just killer. But I saw Buddy Guy twice now.
Oh,
the first time I met him, he stayed at the Murphy Suites that I worked at.
Oh, you told me that story.
It was amazing.
You should say it on here, though. That's a good story.
Yeah. He literally walked down, and I was just beaming. I couldn't go to the concert. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this guy's here. Like, of course I'm playing his music.
Yeah.
So he told me I had good taste in music, and then he like looked over and saw my name tag. He's like, oh, you have a good name too. I was like, yeah. And
yeah, there we go.
I couldn't stop beaming. But this guy, man, like, is still another guy. He just had a new album come out last month.
And that's what it is. Like, a good musician, I think, should always have albums coming out.
I think he's 84 years old.
Yeah.
Like, when I saw him in Ironstone the last time, he was 79, because he has a song called 74 Years Young, and he sang that, and he stopped and he's like, wait a second, I'm 79 now, I shouldn't be singing this anymore. And that's been like 5 years, so...
Yeah.
The fact that this guy continues to make new music. And his albums he's smart with it too. He brings on some newer artists too.
He gets guests and so on. Like another guy I think that's kind of in that category where they bring those guests on and they're just still like killing it at live shows is like Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder if he's still playing now, because the last time I saw him was almost about, I guess it was a little over 10 years ago by now. And this is always like one of those cool concerts you can tell people. It's like, I saw Jerry Lee Lewis, and he opened up for Metallica.
Yeah.
And like, how many people can say you saw Jerry Lee Lewis open up for Metallica, and then Metallica played acoustically, too, to top it all off?
Wow. Yeah, Jerry Lee does a few shows here. He doesn't tour anymore, I don't think. I know he does a few rare show here. There's a video I just saw. He played Rockin' My Life Away, which I love that song.
Uh-huh.
And he's still got it. Like, he's a little slower, of course. But
yeah, because he's a little bit slower, but still.
He's doing that keys, man. He's killing those keys. Like, literally, he's just, like, hammering them. And I'm just blown away. I was like, this guy's in his 80s now. And
yeah, he's
just like Buddy
Guy.
He's
like the only guy. He's like one of those ones, like we were talking about the grunge rock guys are pretty much dying off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like in his, era, like all his, 50s and 60s guys all died off. And he's the one guy going strong this whole way.
Yeah, I think it's left down to him and Little Richard, really.
Yeah.
Of that time period.
Exactly. Because,
Chuck Berry's gone.
Yeah, Chuck Berry's gone. Elvis is gone. Big Bopper.
Yeah.
What's his name from La Bamba?
Richie Valens.
Richie Valens, and yeah, just all those guys. It's funny how there's just certain time periods where it's just like, yep, that's it, that's how it goes.
Yeah, man, I didn't even think about the fact that these guys are as old as they are,
and they can still. And that's the thing about music. I think you can still kind of just like wheel yourself out there. I mean, that's almost what they're doing with like Les Paul. They're like wheeling him out there like towards the end and everything, and just having him go at it.
Yeah, when we saw Buddy the last time though, like I brought a buddy of mine who's not a blues guy at all, and I like blues. I'll be like not a huge blues guy, but there's something about that guy playing the guitar is just magical. And we were watching him play, and like some of the solos that this guy was still doing at the time at 79 years old, I couldn't believe it. I've seen a lot of like the heavy metal masters, and I'm just like, this guy just craps all over these guys. Like,
just so good.
I don't know how he does it.
And the one thing I like is I like traditional blues. I'm not really the biggest fan of blues rock. That's not really what I don't know what it is. Like those guys that came out like in the 70s and started doing like Stevie Ray Vaughan's cool, but like beyond him, a lot of those ones, it's like can you just play just the blues? You know what I mean? Like don't infuse all this other stuff in it. Just the blues, because that's cool by itself. But and that's what's cool when you see the guys who started blues or played it their whole life. They didn't infuse it with like rock and anything. It was just straight up blues. I like that genre.
Yeah, and Buddy's the last one standing. So.
Yeah, I know. Kind of how it is. So gotta go see him if you can. Can go see him.
Absolutely.
But getting to my number 4, we go back to the 90s now with Rage Against the Machine being my number 4.
Yeah.
And now really it's like I always say, like when I do my top band list, I always say mostly anything by Tom Morello, because that's mostly kind of how it is. It's like Rage is just kind of one, and then you go into Audio Slave, which is pure amazing, and then he's got Street Sweeper Social Club, which is a sweet album and a half. Of course, his own stuff, and now Prophets of Rage, which is almost like a sequel to Rage Against the Machine.
That stuff's phenomenal.
But, Rage is the kind of the core original band of just Tom Morello just being an amazing guitar player, and then, of course, the rest of the band, too, And all 4 of those albums are just pure awesome. I know one was a cover album. That's an amazing cover album. Like,
yeah.
If all cover albums, plus it's one of those ones where, one thing I like about, like, when covers is when you do covers in, like, a completely different genre. And, like, those covers that they pick, it's like, where else are you going to find that? Like, it's that heavy metal mixed with rap, They kind of got the mixture of, like, everybody in there and the political topics and so on. And sometimes when I think about 90s music, too, like those, in a sense, I'm going to say, like, the heavy metal bands of that time period, Rage, Pantera, Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie, it's one of those ones, and even Slipknot, I'll say, I don't think music has ever been as heavy as that time period. No. And the thing is you can drop tune, like, 3 times lower than all these guys, and you think if you're screaming the whole time, you're still not nearly as heavy as this energy that comes out of those bands. That energy is just something like unparalleled.
And I agree 100%. I watched this. It was a DVD. I think it was from 92 or 3. It was a live performance with they were Rage was opening up for White Zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And whoa, dude, like that energy at that show, that concert was just insane.
Yeah. Like
Rage, the crowd killed it, and then I think it was at the Roxy or the Whiskey in Hollywood, but like Rage killed it, and then White Zombie is just powerful in itself.
Game on. It's just that time period. I just don't think music has ever been, because like these bands nowadays, it's like they feel like they're like they're making themselves heavy, but they don't feel heavy. That's like the thing that's lost in it. Where these bands, I felt like they weren't trying to be heavy. This is how you felt the heaviness of it. Like Pantera, like they can play an E, and it's still heavier than any song you can create almost.
Yeah, it's hard to say anything bad against Pantera.
Yeah, I know that band's a pure magical band. That band might have to be on my. I know it's not on my list, but that's definitely a close call for a glorified runner-up.
Yeah. Any of those bands, like you mentioned, man, like Pantera, Rage, just White Zombie. White Zombie holds a special place in my heart too.
Yeah,
I'll never get to see them again, but
that's okay.
Man, it makes me sad.
But
Rob's still cool.
Yeah, but yeah, Rob kind of makes up for it.
Yeah.
He pretty much carries the torch of that thing. But yeah, Rage Against the Machine, that's definitely, and especially just Tom Morello. Just Tom Morello in itself. Like, I think if you didn't really have Tom Morello in that band, it's like not saying those guys are all great. You know what I mean? Every single one. Tim Comerfield's fantastic. Zach De La Roche is an amazing singer. And see, that's where Ryan was here. He'd get me covered on that one. But well,
that beats me.
Yeah,
but you're right. I think Tom
Morello is just like that's like the most unique guitar player and like
hands down.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Over all the years, it's like after that point, it's like after the '80s, it's kind of like what more can you do with the guitar? Well, Tom found a way.
And he brought like I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like watching him live too, he brought like a different attitude like to the. And I can't explain that. Of course, like you have to see that. Like if you ever watch any old clips or any music videos, like his style and his performance and the way he did it with the guitars, I can't explain it.
Yeah,
he's just magical, man.
He treated the guitar like it was almost like a DJ turntable. Like he was Jazzy Jeff on guitar. Almost,
yeah, that's actually a good comparison.
But what were we on now? 4?
So number 4, and I got Judas Priest, and this is a tough one. 4 and 3 was really really tough for me, but I had to go for Judas Priest on number 4. And the big thing for me that did with Judas Priest is I think they've gotten better with age. I really do. We mentioned earlier, like, the bands that can do the cover songs and then make it their own. Well, they covered I think it was one of the first songs I heard of Judas Priest. It was because it was more mainstream poppy at the time when I was younger. Was they covered "Johnny Be Good," and I just remember being like, "Wow, like this is really good." And then as I got a little bit older, I remember the first full album of theirs I heard was "Painkiller," which, in my opinion, is still their best album.
Always a great album.
That album, it doesn't get a lot more heavier than Painkiller.
No,
that album just brings it. And
that's always one thing people kind of forget is how heavy Judas Priest is and how heavy they always hold up to being.
Yeah, to me, they're the greatest heavy metal band of all time. I get it. Black Sabbath was around first, but Priest came into their own.
Everybody always wants to go to Black Sabbath. It's not that I don't like Black Sabbath, but I don't know. Like, I think there's much better like heavy metal bands, in that top list. Black Sabbath's still really good, but I'll say this: maybe if you were there like in the '70s and when you first discovered Black Sabbath, I think there's probably a different reaction than like later in life when you kind of already have all the bands to look at. When you're like, well, I can look at Iron Maiden, I can look at Judas Priest and Def Leppard and all these guys. I know I just threw Def Leppard in there. I was gonna throw somebody off like, you chose Def Leppard over Black Sabbath. Like, yeah, I did.
Yeah, I would too. But Judas Priest, I'm noticing a trend here. But we're talking about the last band standing. Like they're the longest lasting heavy metal band in history right now. Like Black Sabbath is done. They're the last ones that are still around from that time period.
Iron Maiden, I guess, would be the other one.
Yeah, but they came out 6 years later than Judas Priest.
Oh.
Judas Priest started in the 60s with Rock-A-Rolla.
That's right, yeah.
And they had, I can't think of the name of the song offhand, but it was covered by Slayer. Can't think of it. Oh, Dissident Aggressor.
Oh, yeah.
That song, it came out in I think it was 69, if I recall. I know somebody's probably going to be like, well, actually.
Well, let me tell you.
I don't know what year it came out as. No matter what, it came out the early 70s at the highest. That song for that time period, even now, holds up to be an incredibly heavy song.
So good.
Then they jump up to like Painkiller. All the 80s stuff is great, of course, Breaking the Law. Painkiller is just insane.
Yeah.
And then they come out with a new album in 2018 that is,
just killer.
In my opinion, the best album since we just talked about it, Painkiller.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like I've always been like, people always want to put down like when bands like, oh, why do they make albums when they're older? It's like, because they make fantastic ones. Iron Maiden did a great album like that.
Yeah.
The Book of Souls one, that was great.
Well, Rob Halford talked about it when he was on I think it was on Talk Is Jericho, but he was saying that he didn't want to, he's like, we don't want to stop. Like, we don't want to be the band that just relies on the hits. We want to keep making new music, so that's what we love. He's like, I want to still be on the charts. I want to still get young people coming to our crowd, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And hats off to him. I've seen him live. I love watching him rock out because he gets so into it. He's got the little dance moves going.
I saw Black Sabbath open for Judas Priest.
Oh, dude. That would have been
amazing. No, I guess it was the other way around. I take that back. No, it wasn't.
Oh, was it that Ozfest, huh?
It was at Ozfest.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times Ozzy always plays before everybody, but for some reason this one, he actually came out later. No. Well, God, I can't remember. This is where you start to forget. No, because I know for a fact because System of a Down was the last band.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those time periods where it was like that was like their last show for like 10 years, or last tour for 10 years.
Yeah, the System's got a new show coming out in Aftershock this year.
I saw that and I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. The only thing about Aftershock, for anybody who's in the Sacramento area, that's always like the weirdest like lineup of stuff. Like I never feel like I can get super into it. Like there'll be like 5 bands, it's like, oh, that's amazing, and then there'll be like 15 or 20 bands, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
The same. I'm looking at the lineup this year, and it's like it'd be awesome to see System again. It'd be really cool to see Guar again.
Yeah, Guar would be amazing.
I really want to see Seven Dust. They're pretty high up on the list of the bands that I want to see this year. But other than that, I'm like, well.
That's the thing. Is like there's I think the downfall. There's too many radio rock bands, and I wish there was more just like straight heavy bands and like.
Yeah, I was just thinking on the way up here, like I'm surprised that they didn't try to bring in Guns N' Roses this year, because last year they brought in Ozzy Osbourne, and that was huge.
Yeah,
and like,
just get that one really. Well, Guns N' Roses are probably expensive, because Guns N' Roses, like I want to go see them when they're playing.
Well, Ozzy's not cheap, I'm
in
sure.
California. Yeah, Ozzy's probably not cheap, but I bet you compared to Guns N' Roses,
Yeah.
they're like that kind of band. They're like Led Zeppelin, where they're like they can just ask any price and be like, oh, okay, you want $500 for what, the back row? Oh, okay, I'll pay it. You know what I mean? Like they can get away with that kind of stuff, because they're just that wanted of a band.
Yeah.
So I feel like, though that'd be cool if they did do Guns N' Roses like that, I just have a hard time thinking that like they probably want such a high pay for it. The tickets would probably skyrocket.
Well, they did a festival. I don't think it was Coachella, but they did a festival like 2 years ago, and it was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to see them, like, cause like even like kind of like OK seats where they're like $75. I was like, yeah, that'd be worth it, but.
I can't say anything with how much I spent to see Kiss and Def Leppard. So.
Yeah. I was thinking about, they had the Welcome to the Jungle package. I'm like, $350. No.
Yeah.
And you go, well, can I go backstage and meet Slash and Axl? Well, and Duff. That's pretty cool.
The hard part I have with those is like I want to see Fozzy, because I know we're getting off the rails, but we talked about the meet and greet packages. With Fozzy, they do like a little mini concert for everybody who did the thing. They hang out with you for like an hour.
That's cool. They'll just like put you over the corner and they'll be like...
Yeah. I feel like with a lot of the big bands, like we did the meet and greet with Alice Cooper.
You get like a handshake.
Amazing. Yeah, with meet and
greets. Well, Alice
with,
Cooper, you probably get a little bit more. But
yeah, he talks to you and you get to like, eat and stuff like that and takes pictures. But with a lot of the bands, like I'm noticing like Kiss, like I didn't do it, but what I've been told is you pay a lot of money. You get to be like, hey, how's it going? Shake all their hands. They take a professional photo and they kind of scoot you right along. It's like, oh.
Yeah. It's kind of like... Yeah, I feel it's almost like one of those, if you're going to be paying that extra bit of money, you should get that. You should get the Wayne's World experience. You know what I mean? Like, that's exactly what you want when you got backstage passes to hang out with Alice Cooper, and then you literally are, like, hanging out with him.
Yeah. See, I want Duff McKagan to, like, personally, like, greet me and, like, say hi and stuff like that. It's like, I have a personal fantasy that, like, one day, like, I'm going to be at a restaurant, and Dwayne Johnson's going to be the one to, like, hey, here's your food. And then after I'm done, he's going to rub my belly. That's what I want from him, to spend the money for like a Guns N' Roses
exactly.
meet and greet.
Well, that's what I always felt about like Comic Cons and stuff like that too, because you would have paid to meet people there and so on. And like some of that's like $50 just to like literally shake someone's hand. It's like, are you kidding me? For $50, I'd be able to go to dinner with this guy. You know what I mean? I'll pay, but still, like, come on. Like, I feel like, yeah, and it's just amazing that people just line up and pay this stuff like that. It's like, wow, just to, I don't know.
I can't justify it.
That's how I feel too. I mean, I guess if you just got money to burn, then sure, why not? But yeah, I want to hang out with Slash. I don't want to just shake his hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is he gonna give me a hand job or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is he gonna drive me home later on? Like, come on, like what's going on here?
Is Axl gonna take advantage of me and get me drunk? Like,
yeah,
what's going on here?
I'll take that role in the movie if that's what it is.
Yeah. I'll be on the Rocket Queen album. That's cool.
Like I was like, it's like, well, you're paying $350. Like, well, as long as he takes advantage of me, it's okay.
Yeah. As long as I'm taking advantage of him.
There we go. It's fine and dandy.
Well, let's move on. Who do you got for number 3?
My number 3 is The Offspring.
Yes. They were one of the bands that was right on the brink that I was like, ooh.
You know what I kind of like is our list so far has not run into each other, so it's almost like we get more stuff to talk about because of that. Where, sometimes like you keep hitting the same bands.
Looking at my next 3, I don't think they will, honestly. Maybe one of them.
But I don't know.
I think I know which one too, but
The Offspring's one of those bands, like, in the time period where, like, I was kind of iffy about modern music, Offspring was one of the few bands where I was like, no, I'm cool with the Offspring, in that 90s period. And this was, like, when they, they only had a couple albums at this time period. It was right before Americana, and then that one came out, and that was, they were humongous from that point on. But that's always the music that, like, when I think Pizza Boy's the comic, like, if there's a soundtrack to it, The Offspring is definitely it.
I can see that.
Like, if it's one of those ones, because, in the olden days, too, there's always those movies, too, where it's like, soundtrack by The Offspring.
Yeah.
They're always on so many soundtracks. People used to give them crap. I remember like punk rockers like, "You're not a real punk rocker. They sold out.
Yeah.
They're in a movie." Like, I don't know what. It's like, yeah, they're making money. You know, what are you doing?
As if that same band wouldn't have been like, "Oh, Warner Brothers wants me for this much. We'll change the style just slightly." Sorry.
Yeah. It's a little bit of publicity and so on, but like, yeah, because obviously like they're in that Orange County movie. They're in.
That's a great movie.
The Faculty. They're in. There's just so many movies. There's that one where it's like it's got Henry Rollins in it. He's actually a cop in there, and then it's got also like from Red Hot Chili Peppers, Anthony Kiedis and Flea are in it. But they got music from The Offspring in that movie. It's The Chase with Charlie Sheen.
Oh, okay.
But
wow, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, that's kind of just a neat movie in itself. But yeah, it's like that's where I remember I'd always learn about like all these extra ones. Or I Know What You Did Last Summer has an exclusive Offspring song in there. Yeah. So when I just think about it, this Offspring just reminds you just good times, takes you back to being like, it's like the ultimate 90s kid kind of album, I feel, or songs. Crazy Taxi, right then there, like, does that not take you somewhere when you hear those songs?
Yeah, the Offspring is pretty much like the Green Ranger of the punk rock bands, I think.
Oh, they so are, you know what I mean? If you couldn't have like your top 5, like the big punk rock bands of that time period, you have like Blink-182, Offspring, maybe Sum 41. Some people probably don't put Sum 41. I was thinking more like the pop punk kind of ish bands. I know Offspring kind of like melds because they got that thing where like you look at their look, like what they look like on those first couple albums, and they just look like they're ready to be playing alongside like Korn and Marilyn Manson. Then all of a sudden they have kind of more of like a pop punk friendlier look.
Yeah. We just saw them. The Offspring was amazing. They were a bucket list band for me for a long time. My mom wouldn't let us listen to it. So when I was younger, all she heard was me and my cousin were listening to I can't think of the title offhand, but I just remember it says "My friend's got a girlfriend, he hates that bitch." She heard that and I was like, "Oh, no, you can't listen to this." And then that was it. Yeah. So of course, because I heard that, I was like, "Well, now I'm going to." Yeah. And like she would leave the house and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna sneak this on now." But we saw them at Aftershock actually a few years back, and to me, the best bands of the night were them and Limp Bizkit. But Offspring was
See, I bet you Limp Bizkit would totally be an awesome band to see.
Oh, they killed it. Like, they were so good.
So good. Because that's one of the bands that kind of people look back on like almost like a joke band, but it's like, especially that first Limp Bizkit album, like, it sounds weird, but like, I bet you in concert, it changes so much.
Oh yeah, they were the best band of that whole festival both days. Like Limp Bizkit killed it. Like, and they weren't even one of the bands that I wanted to see the most. Like I remember being like, okay, well they played it at some time. They've had some weird like techno artists playing. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not. Oh, AWOL Nation. Yeah, and I was like, I'm not watching this. And so I was like, well, let's go watch Limp Bizkit. And I was just shocked how good they were. Yeah. But then like 2 hours later, the Offspring played, and they were the band I was like, we're gonna see them because they played right before, if I recall correctly, Five Finger Death Punch and then Rob Zombie. Like, well, we're watching the Offspring no matter what. Yeah. And dude, they were amazing. I was so surprised at how good they still were, and I shouldn't be surprised because like I know it's one of those things we talked about. Like they get better musicianship as age, but yeah, they killed it. They were so good. They played, I think it was Smash in its entirety. Mm-hmm. And then I just remember like they played it really fast because it's a pretty small album, really. Yeah,
because all their albums are like, if you disinclude that final track on them, they're only they're like maybe just a tad bit under a half an hour. Then I felt like the reason they always put that like 12-15 minute track at the end is just so it seems like it's a little bit longer when you pop it in your CD player. And you go, what the heck is this? 28 minutes?
Dude, I just remember their singer was like, all right, Noodles, we played the song, we can go home now. And the whole crowd was like, what? Like, it's only been 40 minutes. And they're like, oh, I guess we do have a few other songs we can play. And then, like, they have I don't even know the track name, but a pretty popular hit that came out, like, 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, that last album they had was actually, like, it had great Offspring album.
Yeah.
They had a couple, like, experimental songs on there that you might... Like, there's one song, like, the best way I could describe it is it felt like a Katy Perry Offspring song. Like, I don't know how else, but it was... Yeah. It's kind of like so goofy and dumb that I almost kind of like it because of that, but it's not really like the greatest song. But the rest of the album is just like, it was a solid album. And I kind of hope that they start doing another one because it seems like in the 2000s and 2010s, like they've only done three albums, I think. And it's just like kind of like, oh, like they're like 6-7 years apart from each other almost.
Hey, as long as they keep playing and if they do make new music, I'll buy it. And
they keep making new stuff, but But yeah, always a good band. Always just that soundtrack band of life. I always feel.
It's funny. They were literally the last band that I had to just eke off my list. So I'm glad we got to talk about them a little bit. I was a little bit worried there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, where are we at now? You at your
number 3, and my number 3 is Y&T. So this was a tough one for me between Y&T and Judas Priest because I love both bands so much, and I know Y&T is not the most popular band by any means, but live they're incredible. Yeah, and I've seen and all their music's amazing. I really, I don't know what it was. I think they just weren't, I guess, sexy enough back in the 80s to.
This is what I was thinking was, because they're one of those bands, they're almost a little too good, and a lot of times when you're just a tad bit too good as a musician, you don't like resonate with like the regular fans as much. Yeah. And I think because that's it, because it seems like always like musicians love Y&T, you know, people that are really guitar, you know, it's kind of like they're in that progressive rock sort of section of that. Those bands always have a harder time, I think, just like, you know, they're not turning out the hits, and they're not like as poppy of a band. They're just a really good band. That's just the end of the day.
My first time, like, I remember hearing about Y&T with my mom and like my aunt when I was a little kid, but never. I probably heard some of the songs playing. Didn't know it was them. But I remember when I lived in Modesto and I was trying to find a job, and I was like by the Fat Cat, and they were hiring for security guards. And
Did you work at the Fat Cat at one point?
Literally I literally worked there so I can watch Y&T for free.
I literally worked at the Fat Cat for like one event. I sold. They gave me like they had this thing with like, here, you know, you sell these concert tickets and then you get like a percentage of it, or there's like comedy tickets. That was the toughest thing. Nobody wants to see comedy. I don't know what people hate comedy. Apparently, is what I learned. Like when you're trying to give out comedy tickets to somebody they don't know.
Unless it's a big name, they're like, well, yeah, I'll give them $100.
Well, it was like free tickets too. Like at the end, it's like, here, you take this. If it's free, if you go to the concert, I get paid. That's all you have to do. Or the comedy club part of it. And it's like, nope, nobody wanted to do anything to do with that.
Yeah. That was a cool venue. I missed that place.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was looking for a job, and I was like, oh, saw Y&T was playing, and I was like, well, I'm gonna apply here to be bodyguard. And like the guy was like, when can you start? I was like, tomorrow. Like, when do you need me? And he goes, well, we have a show coming up. It's this date, and some 80s bands playing. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll check it out. Like he gave me the flyer, and it was Y&T. So I was like, oh, I've heard of them. I was probably the worst security guard ever. I hope there wasn't any fights, because I just remember like standing in the back of the crowd, not paying attention at all, just being completely absorbed by how phenomenal these guys were on stage. Just
so good,
absolutely good. They played for like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, you gotta love that too.
I didn't get it. I was just blown away, and then I got really into them. And I've seen Y&T more than I've seen any band. Really? They are just like I've driven all the way to Hollywood to see them. Driven to Santa Cruz. Like I've met Dave. Actually, it was weird. When I went to Steel Panther a while back, I met a guy named Nick. He was in Faith and Bullets for a while, and so he was at the Steel Panther concert, and we were talking in line, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like he's like, I'm a stagehand. I do stagehand." He's like, "Have you ever heard of a band called Y&T?" And I said, "Yeah." Like I was like, "I just saw him 2 nights ago." He goes, "Oh really? Like you saw him in Santa Cruz?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, so like, do you remember like a spot? Because like I think Dave dropped a bottle of water, and he ran out to pick it up, and then like right after that, one of the bass player's cord came undone. He had to come on the stage, and I realized it. I was like, that was you. Yeah. And we became pretty good friends. And then I remember like every time I'd go to the show, he'd be like, "Hey, if you get here early, you can go to sound check."
Yeah. I was like,
of course, like as I was a big fan, I was just like completely enamored getting to watch these guys. And like a super underrated band does not get the credit they deserve for sure.
And I think because they're at that kind of like weird time period, like they're like a 70s band going into the 80s. So you get the people that like, you know, like Rush and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and like those kind of bands that are into it, but maybe they're like a little bit heavier for those guys, but maybe not heavy enough for like the heavy metal guys of like the 80s. It's a weird like in between. It's like they literally like kind of like transition the genres between like 70s music into the 80s.
And one thing I really like about them too is like, so they have a pretty amazing catalog at this point. I mean, they've been around for 45 years, I think. But like the last time I saw them, like they were like, oh, like we're gonna take some requests because like they had a little bit more time to kill. And so like I shouted "Beautiful Dreamer," which is their very first song off or a hit off their first album, and like Dave just smiled and he's just like, "Did I hear that right? Somebody wants to hear "Beautiful Dreamer," like, and he's just like, "Well, we haven't rehearsed this one in a long time, but let's do it." Yeah. And they played it, and it wasn't flawless. You can tell they hadn't practiced in a while, but I was like, "That's amazing."
That's a kid.
They're playing a 45-year-old song that they haven't played in I don't know how many years. And
and it's cool they're able just to take those shout outs like that. Yeah, with it.
I love it, man. That band, can't say enough good things.
Yeah, all around good. Well, let's see, what are we on, 2 now?
Yes, sir.
2? I'm going with Motley Crue now.
Yeah.
And Motley Crue to me, that was like my ultimate band of being a teenager. And here's the thing about Motley Crue. It's one of those ones where like, when I first discovered Motley Crue, it was like, of course I liked them a lot and everything like that, but they weren't like my favorite band right off the bat. You know, it's like, well, you know, they're cool, but maybe not as much as some of these other bands I like. But the 2 things that kind of like won me over with Motley Crue more than anything else was Reading the Dirt. which I always feel is like one of the best autobiographies of a band ever.
And I still haven't borrowed from you.
Oh yeah, I know. And then 2 was seeing them in concert. Like those 2 elements really changed me from going from like, no, Motley Crue's a really good band to being like, no, Motley Crue's like a superior band. Like, and then they had a concert that was huge. And the best part about it is like they have that Carnival of Sins DVD. That was the first one I saw of Motley Crue. So it's like I can just like pass that DVD and be like, this was the experience I had. And it like that's just such a good concert.
Was that the tour you saw them on?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
And it was before they called it Carnival of Sins. They called it Red, White, and Crew at that time period, but it was still the same like setup and everything.
Where'd you see them at?
Reno.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. Because I was at the same show.
Oh yeah, you were. Yeah. What we did is after a while was like we walked down past the security guards and we were right in the very front next to McMars.
Nice. That's awesome.
I have the set list from it and everything like up on.
Really? Oh, that's cool. That was my second concert. Well, yeah, I think it was second and maybe third. The only band I'd seen before them was Kiss and Aerosmith. If it was my third concert, I'd seen Poison too, but like it was right up there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh gosh, I knew they were great.
Yeah, you see them live, and it's like they're so amazing. And there was no opening band, and they played for like 2.5 hours. They pretty much played just about everything you wanted. The only song that I thought was kind of weird they didn't play was "Smoke in the Boys' Room," but I remember reading in the book later, it was like, oh, well, not Vince Neil, but Nikki Sixx hates that song.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it makes sense.
I was really surprised. If I remember right, I think they closed with Anarchy in the UK. And I just remember being like, what? Like, really weird.
They closed with like that one and like something else. Like they might have played 2 covers in a row because they might have done their Helter Skelter at that time.
Yeah.
So
I know that it was either that show or the next show that I saw them on that tour, but I remember they played Glitter, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like that's not a very obscure like hip song or.
Well, because they also played Red Hot.
Red Hot, yes.
I was like, whoa, that's a weird choice of a song.
That's one of my favorite songs.
Awesome, yeah. So it's like, yeah, Motley Crue just in itself is amazing. And I'm kind of like, I know they did that thing where they're like, we signed a contract so we can't get back together. I'm like, yeah, but you know what's going to happen? 5 years going to go by, you guys are going to realize, like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Because right now it's like, Vince Neil plays by himself. And, you could go see Vince Neil, and that would be like seeing Motley Crue close enough. It'd be like Motley Crue light. Yeah,
I saw Vince Neil. One of the times I saw Steel Panther, he got on stage with them. And it was after I saw them on their farewell tour. And it's like, I'm not going to go see Vince Neil solo anymore.
But it wasn't that good, really?
No, and it might have been just the fact that like they like tried to rush him into like they were like, yeah, like I think he was drunk. He's like, yeah, I'll sing a song or two with you guys.
That didn't really help.
And so they like they're like, well, what do you want to play, man? And he's like, well, what songs do you guys know of ours? And Michael Starr's like, we know all of them. So he's just like, well, I'll feel like singing Live Wire. So I thought, oh shit, okay, like that's a killer song. And he couldn't keep up with him. Like Michael Starr killed it. Vince Neil could not keep up. So. And did you see them on their farewell tour with Alice Cooper?
I didn't. I wanted to go so bad to that one, and I was even going to go to Vegas to go see it because I knew that was like their last one or wherever they were at. But I was like, I didn't see that one. So bummed.
It was bittersweet because it was good, but I knew like the moment that I saw the lineup announced, I was like, ooh, that's bold of them. Yeah. But Alice Cooper should not be opening up. Like,
Alice Cooper was opening up. For some reason, I guess it makes it. It's our farewell tour. Why would Alice? It's our farewell tour, but we're not opening up. That'd be kind of weird.
I knew it right away. I was like, that's not going to go good for them. Like,
yeah. That's a tough one right there. So you know what I mean? Because I also saw them when they played with Aerosmith. And that was totally the Aerosmith show. Motley Crue was like the opening act. Like they played for like 45 minutes, but like they got no bells and whistles like Aerosmith did. Yeah. But that was still just cool in itself. But.
Well, and going back to they let Alice Cooper do a full 2-hour set. So the crowd was just like
burnt out
blown away. And then Motley Crue did 2 hours. So I was like, oh. But yeah, and I saw Motley Crue open for Kiss too. And well, I think they co-headlined it, but it was called The Tour, and it was Motley Crue and Kiss, and that was really good.
I remember there was also where Motley Crue was actually they put him in Ozfest, which I remember that was kind of cool. That was a ballsy choice because Motley Crue's still like. They're in that hair metal category, but they're one of those bands that's almost like one step still in the heavy metal category. Like you could be into like Metallica and Slayer and everything like that and be like, you know what, Motley Crue's okay. You know what I mean? Where you might not be into Poison or Warrant or any of those ones.
Motley Crue's a lot like Skid Row to me.
Skid Row's like that too. Skid Row's kind of like they're in the hair metal category, but they're almost just heavy enough that they could open for Pantera.
Yeah. Yeah, Skid Row. That's another one that I didn't think of.
Yeah. That's a good one, but I will say I know for a fact they're not my top 10 list. I always have loved Skid Row, but I know that they're never that list, but still good.
Yeah, Motley's
Motley's that's just a special band, and it's like as time has gone on, I haven't listened to them maybe nearly as much, as like other bands, but as far as a classic band goes, Motley Crue is just where it's at. I really wish they would still make albums and so on, because I think that last one was great, and I think even their '90s albums are awesome too. But
I love Saints of Los Angeles.
I feel like they're one of those bands that kind of like sort of, I don't know if they felt like they really just legitimately got burnt out.
Yeah.
And
you don't, as bad as it is, like, I think, and I hate saying this kind of stuff, but I think they got progressively worse as I saw them live. Like Carnival of Sins, amazing.
Yeah.
And then it was like, a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse. On the farewell tour, they literally had backup singers right on stage. Like, they didn't even try to hide it. They just had like 2 female backup singers that were singing the high notes because Vince Neil couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, kind of like when you see Doc and he can't do the high notes either. But
yeah,
it was like, well, at least he tries to mask it. Vince Neil was just like, I remember he was doing Wild Side, and you could tell he was just blown out. Like, we got second row seats, we could see everything. You could tell he's huffing and puffing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's singing Wild Side, like, take a ride, and then like put the microphone out, and like I was like, he's catching his breath.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of thing. And I think also, this is the thing about Motley Crue is I think the personality-wise, the perfect example is like you read The Dirt, like none of those guys are on the same page. That's the other thing. It's almost like magic that Motley Crue really happens. It literally is the Motley Crue because all 4 of them are so radically different from each other. You got Mick Mars, who doesn't even like metal. He likes blues guitar and all that kind of stuff. He's, you got Tommy Lee, who's just this fun, happy kid in like an adult's body nowadays. You got Vince Neil, who's just the party, like that old school kind of rock star guy who's like just wants to party and get ladies and things like that, and that's all he cares about. And then you got Nikki Sixx, who's kind of like the artist of the group, but also has his problems in itself. And it's just that whole like mismatch of like people getting together, and it's almost like it's amazing they even get stuff done half the time.
When we saw them, I think it was like on Carnival of Sins, or maybe it was the Farewell Tour. I don't remember. I remember Tommy Lee came out and he was talking. He's passing out, like, he's taking a swig and then passing out bottles of Jaeger, and he's doing it throughout the crowd. And I just remember, like, everybody that was in, like, our immediate area was like, nope, not drinking off that one.
Yeah,
like,
not worth it.
You don't know what you're going to catch from that bottle.
That's what I was like, too. Like, Motley Crue's, like, they're the band that's, like, they get sober, but they don't even last too long.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot of sobriety there.
I felt like, like, their sober is like, well, we're not doing heroin anymore, so it's not nearly as bad.
Nikki Sixx's albums are incredible. The 6 a.m. stuff.
I've never been able to get into those. I feel like I should really like him for as much as I like Nikki Sixx, but it was that thing, like, I don't know, because that was, like, weird. It was almost like they're just too soft. I don't know. It's like they're missing the heaviness of them.
So I think that's just because I'm getting older now and I'm starting to ease up a little bit.
Well, it's like, once again, like, I like some of that soft stuff. I mean, I started my list off of Jim Croce.
True.
I like things like John Denver, and I like things like Simon and Garfunkel and so on, but yeah, it's just like, I don't know, there's certain ones that, like, maybe they just, I don't know, maybe I'd give it another go at some point and see what happens. But yeah, Motley Crue, that's my number 2. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Kiss.
And there you go.
Kiss was another one that was kind of tough for me because forever they've always been my number 1 band until I saw the person who's now my number 1 live. And I was just like, well, it's got to change up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's hard to beat Kiss, man.
I know, Kiss is totally like my honorable mention band for sure. It's like... And this is the thing about Kiss. Like, I've liked Kiss my whole life. As time has gone on, though, I only like Kiss more.
Yeah.
It's like, they're one of those bands that, like, because, you first kind of hear Kiss, and you're like, oh, they're good. Maybe they're not, like, amazing like, certain other bands. But then, as time goes on, you're like, no, those songs are amazing. And they're more amazing than other bands that even are more technical and so on.
Oh, without a doubt. They're a lot like AC/DC. Like, personally, I think AC/DC, like, I'm becoming more of a fan as I get older. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm realizing I think AC/DC is the greatest rock and roll band of all time. Like,
AC/DC is like rock and roll defined.
Yeah.
Like, who's more rock and roll than AC/DC at the end of the day?
Really, Kiss is the only one that's like up there to me because they're so simple.
Yeah.
And so simplistic. But like when you hear like basic riffs like in Dr. Love, you're like, what? Like, that's it? But this song made millions.
Yeah.
And so whenever I hear like a lot of people, especially like if I hear like a legitimate like source, like somebody with some reputation in music, like if I heard Chris Jericho be like, Kiss is a talented band, I'll listen to it. But for the most part, you're not going to hear that because the musicians know, and more than likely, Kiss inspired them. Mm-hmm. But when you hear a lot of like the bands, like in like local bands or like in smaller bands, like, oh, Kiss couldn't ever do what we do. It's like, yeah, they made a lot more money, right?
Yeah, well, that's I feel like this goes back to like even Offspring, because I remember that always was you always hear those like people like, oh yeah, there's simple Offspring riffs and so on, and it's like, yeah, but because sometimes to make the best song, you don't need the most complicated riff, and at the end of the day, like. Yeah, you want to be making more money. Like, I don't know what people are thinking. It's like, I mean, you don't want to, like, completely change your genre just for, like, the sake of trying to be on the radio. But for the most part, like, if you got good hit songs, like, why would you want to be, like, complaining about that?
And to Kiss's credit, they're another band that just got better as they got older. Mm-hmm. I'm not as crazy about their last album. I did like the one in 2008 a lot, but Newest album, not my favorite. Still good, but not my favorite.
Is it Monsters?
Yeah.
I actually like that one quite a bit.
It's good.
I mean, I know it's the safest playing album you can imagine, but there's some good stuff on there still.
I think Revenge, though, is their best album. Like, and to me, it's not even close. Like, Revenge is very close to a perfect album.
Well, the nice thing about like Kiss is, knowing Kiss, when the decades go on, that's why I love looking at the album covers of Kiss, because you can tell what year it is by a Kiss album cover, because he's always just going, or they're just always going after, like, okay, so they sort of got the disco one, then you see they jump into the hair metal stuff, or at first they jump into the heavy metal stuff, because you see that they're doing like the Judas Priest, Iron Maiden thing, and then that was popular for a bit. Now we're kind of going to the hair metal thing here, and then you go into the grunge and that stuff. And I love there's like album like '96 or something.
Carnival of Souls.
No, I don't think it's that one yet. I think it's the one right before that. I could be, but it's the one where they're literally standing in a room. They're like,
it's that one.
Oh yeah, they're like, let's do the Nirvana thing. We got it.
That album's really good. Like the musicianship on that album. That honestly, musician-wise, might be Kiss's best album.
Oh, it's got great songs. I love the cover because that cover.
It's so bad.
You're watching. It's just like, here's 4 old guys trying to be hip in the grunge rock era. That's so what is. And it's just almost just funny because you can tell even like on their faces, they're just like,
Gene's trying to be tough.
Like, he's got like the Kurt Cobain like shirt on. They're kind of wearing baggier clothes.
Well, and even on Revenge, like if you look at, it's not on the direct cover, but on the back side of it, if you see it, like it's similar picture, but like Gene's wearing like this like huge trench coat with arms crossed, trying to look tough. But man, that album, man, front to back, is not a bad song. But then Carnival of Sins, it has a song called Master and Slave that's really good. Mm-hmm. Like I hadn't heard that album in a long time, but Chris Jericho recently said it's one of his. He said that song, Master and Slaves, is like a sleeper Kiss song that everybody should check out. That and Heart of Chrome is really, really
another good one there too.
But Kiss, man, live, they still are incredible. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to beat Paul Stanley, man. That guy, in my opinion, is the ultimate rock star.
So good. And he's always like one of the most motivational guys ever. Like that guy, like if you want a guy that like can inspire you to really do great, Paul Stanley's the one,
And if you want to learn how to be cheap, just listen to Gene Simmons.
Yeah, just Gene Simmons and so on like that. Gene Simmons always got his business talk and so on. But Paul Stanley's like he's a great like public, almost like speaker for motivation. It seems like because he's got that whole attitude of like, hey, you know what I mean? Like I came from nothing, and I did it. So why can't you? You can do it too. Anybody that tells you can't do it, it's because they haven't done it yet, and they haven't done anything, and they gave up already, and that's why they're telling you can't do it because they couldn't be able to do it because they gave up. But I did it, so I'm going to tell you that you can do it.
Paul Stanley, he was on Talk as Jericho somewhat recently too, and like he was talking about like the state of the music industry, which he's not a fan of. Yeah. And like he's like, well, like, do you guys have plans on making a new album? And he said no, and I was kind of caught off guard. I was like, really? Like that's a bummer. Yeah. But he brought up a good point. Like he was saying, it's hard for bands like us in these situations because like when we've been around so long, he's like a lot of the older bands, like they've had like a lot of bands that are older that stick around, like bands like Judas Priest. He said, like they haven't had the commercial hits that we have, which is true. Mm-hmm. So he said, like in our spot, like if we make a new album, what are we going to take off? Yeah, you got remove because it's kind of hard for They already played 2.5 hours. Yeah, unless you want to be like Neil Young, who just doesn't care. Yeah, I always give credit to Neil Young because Neil Young, he's not the kind of guy you go to a concert, don't expect a hit from Neil Young. Like he might play one, but he'll just play whatever he feels like, and I almost got to give him sort of credit just by doing that too. I know they don't play God of Thunder anymore. That makes me sad. Such a bummer. That's one of my favorite Kiss songs. That's like one of those songs that I think, like looking back, I think that came out in '76. That was a heavy song. Like, that's a very... That to me is what I imagined Kiss always sounded like. When I first got into Kiss, I had imagined that like they were like, oh, these are gonna be like so like hardcore, like heavy metal. Well, that's the one thing. You look at them, they look like they should be. Yeah. They look like Cradle of Filth, really, at the end of the day. They do. And the first song I heard of theirs was Shout It Out Loud. And they were just that couldn't have been more opposite than what I had imagined. Yeah. Now I love Shout It Out Loud, and I loved that song. Then I was like, oh, this is really catchy. By the end of it, I was like, oh, I like this. Like, because they're pure rock and roll, but they have the most heavy metal look. Yeah. And it's that kind of thing where, and like they got metalness to them, but like that look almost doesn't really match their music. Oddly enough, I mean, you don't think about it once you've been listening to them for a long time, but anytime you show it initially to someone who has no idea who Kiss is. Like, you know what I mean? If I just saw Gene Simmons, like, spitting out blood, my first thought would be like, this is a heavy metal band. Yeah. Stevie O'Bergure, that's what they are right there. Yeah. But then I hear him singing X-Ray Eyes. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, it's an interesting one. But Cadillac Dreams. Like, Kiss is just one of those ones. And I think also what makes them like a band that, like, why they're always just so good, once again, comes down to, like, not being into drugs and alcohol. Like, that makes such a difference in music, I think. Yeah. I think it's one of those ones, like, those drugs and alcohol can maybe get you, like, one good album or so like that, but
if you go too long in it, then you almost get the Motley Crue thing where you kind of spin out and then you can't really keep going. You know, it's like Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent is another example. Like, people only think of him for like his 70s like couple of hits he has and so on like that, but like his like last handful of albums are beyond amazing. It's because when you don't do drugs and alcohol, you could spend all this time like getting better and better at your craft. Like, yeah, the last couple Ted Nugent albums, so good.
I think we should do a podcast just talking about Ted Nugent's political opinions.
I think so too, because you know I'll say this. I think Ted Nugent about 90% of the time is pretty, you know, right. Every once in a while, he's got a couple of those ones where he's like, okay, he's going a little bit off the rails. But beyond that,
he's so intelligent. Like, and Henry Rollins was just on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was they talked about Ted. Yeah, cool. I love Henry Rollins.
Yeah, because I remember he was on there, but this is probably 2 years ago by now. But
this one's really good too. And the old one's a better listen to, I think, but this one's still really good. But he was talking about Ted Nugent, and he's like, I hate how like wild he can be because he's so smart, and if he just talked normal, like people are gonna be like, wow, he's probably right with a lot of his opinions. His problem is that he's just like, I hate it and this is why. Listen to me, I'm yelling now.
No, he's too energetic, and he kind of like, he's one of those like grab the mic and then start walking away from everybody else.
Yeah,
you know, you feel like you're in the. I like that Stone Cold one that he talked about. I don't know whose podcast. It was on his own podcast, but maybe it was the one where he was on with Chris Jericho, I think. Never mind, no, he was on Chris Jericho, and he had this. He's like, yeah, one time we were out hunting, we ran into Ted Nugent.
Yes,
that. He's like, you know, as much as I love Ted Nugent, one of my favorite musicians there, but he is that guy. He's like, once he gets that mic, you don't get a hold of it at all.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of the case, but like, you know, yeah, like a lot of the Ted Nugent points though, it's like he's really got down, and it's like I think people just look at him like a crazy person so that they don't believe anything he says. Mm-hmm. But if you sit down and like listen to what he has to say, he's a real reasonable guy, and he's one of those kind of guys like he's not as like extremist as people kind of think. Like, you know, he's not even a Republican. You know what I mean? He's got his own different kind of views on things, and the things a lot of times he does really actually help out. Like, I've come to conclusion, he's the most environmental like person out there. Nobody does more environmental work than Ted Nugent. Mm-hmm. And like literally, like anybody can come and try to debate that. They're just gonna lose because who does more work than Ted Nugent does? You know what I mean? He's planting trees. He's keeping like the population in check. You know, he's doing all kinds of good things. He's bringing out events and charities and money into the wildlife.
And talking about like the like walking off the mic, Gene Simmons is the same way.
Yeah, Gene Simmons. That's why I always feel like Gene Simmons, because I remember like I think it was on when the Kiss did in the late '90s when they did not like their farewell tour, but it was kind of like a farewell tour. But
it was supposed to be a farewell tour.
Yeah, they had Ted Nugent was their opening act. Yeah,
Ted Nugent and Skid Row.
Yep, that's a good lineup right there. Except probably with Skid Row with
No, Sebastian Bach was out of there.
Yeah, because he was already out by that point. I was kind of feel bad. It's like, well, I'm not Sebastian Bach, so.
Oh, I love Skid Row. I wouldn't see him without Sebastian Bach. I'll see Sebastian Bach, but I won't because he still does all the Skid Row songs and his own solo songs.
Yeah, his old solo stuff's great. You know, you can go see.
I've heard Skid Row's album with it, and it's not the same.
Yeah, see, that's always the sad part too. Is like, doesn't matter how good your band is, the second you lose your singer, you literally are a different band. I mean, one of the few that were able to pull that off is like AC/DC. You know, and you got Brian Johnson. And then I hear that with Axl Rose, though, in there.
Oh, phenomenal. Really
I heard nothing but the best things. And they say it's almost like another Bon Scott. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of the cool part. They're like, you get almost like a more of a Bon Scott time period that, you know, of course, Brian Johnson always did some of the Bon Scott songs, but they're like, you know, Axl really pulls the deep cut Bon Scott songs out.
That's what Jericho talked about because he saw them with Axl, and he was like, man, they played this song, and I don't know them offhand, of course.
I remember like Duff McKagan said that. I feel like Duff kind of has to say that or he's going to get bullied into like something.
I love Duff.
I know he's amazing, one of my favorite bass players and so on. But yeah, Kiss, amazing. I don't know how we kept going on to other bands there. I forgot which band we were even talking about.
We kind of go off the rails a little bit here or there.
But okay, we're coming up to my number one, and my number one's
like a feeling.
I got like a much more different one than like it's not a big band, but it's a guy who's been working extraordinarily hard for like 30 years and gets like absolutely no recognition for the most part. But that's Wednesday 13.
Wow. Yeah.
That's my you know my buddy Kyle, when he got, I guess it was the Murder Dolls album. That's how I figured out about Wednesday 13. And he was like, dude, check this out. And we put it on. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a mixed match of like Motley Crue, Rob Zombie, and almost even sort of like kind of punk rock. Even like Offspring, I'll even say something kind of like that. And I was like, that's so cool. And it's like, and he had like the kind of gothic look, like, you know, he's almost like a modern Motley Crue band and so on. And it makes sense because later on he even has Mick Mars on some of his albums and so on. But then you go to discover, okay, so you got those two Murder Dolls albums, and those ones are pure amazing. And then you realize that really what that is it's Wednesday 13 is just like this own solo artist, and he's got like, I mean, he's also got tons of other bands. There's like Maniac Spider Trash, which is like his first one. Then he's got Frankenstein Drag Queens from Planet 13 that goes throughout the 90s. And that's just filled with all kinds of stuff. And then you get into like Wednesday 13 and Murder Dolls. And he's even got, other bands. He's got a country band too, which is phenomenal, called the Bourbon Crow. And he's just got so many albums. He's one of those guys who always puts out an album at least once a year or so, just about. He's kind of slowed down a little bit. Now it's like every 2 years in like the last couple. But for the most part, he always is. Always putting out weird like side songs and so on, doing kinds of different genres. He's even the one who he'll record some of his own songs like over and over again and just make them that much more dialed in. I always give him credit for that because the first couple times you hear some of his songs like on the Frankenstein ones, they're very like punk rock. It's just a 3-piece band where they're just dressed up all goofy as can be. He's really doing the Marilyn Manson thing before Marilyn Manson, though he always kind of it goes the other way around. People always say it, but it's like he's before Marilyn Manson. But so he's just got kind of his own thing going there, and he's just changed it up. And I just like, as I said, like the re-recording the songs, like just to make him that much more dialed in. I mean, because Murder Dolls is really just like almost a somewhat greatest hits of Frankenstein Drag Queens with a couple of extra bonus songs in there. But overall, like what I was like, he has fun kind of party rock style music like Motley Crue, but it's got like horror themes in it and violent messages, but still kind of funny, almost even like a Steel Panther kind of way. He sings about movies and things like that. And we went to one of his concerts once in like Fresno, me and Ryan Dunigan. And I know we probably talked about this on the show before. And it was one of those ones where like it was just at this little club, and like I think it was just like, oh, it's Wednesday 13, he's just huge and so on. Then you kind of go, oh, it's in this teeny tiny club. One of those kind of clubs that when you show up there with like online bought tickets, they didn't know that those actually existed.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, okay, well here's my receipt. Oh, okay, well come on in. And I remember there was a couch there, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're commandeering this couch.
Yeah.
So for all the 4 opening acts before Wednesday 13, we sat on this couch. Greatest concert experience ever. I wish more concerts had couches at it, because I hate standing and things like that. And then like the second that Wednesday 13 came in, we stood up and we're like right there in the front, and it was just totally awesome. And then we got to meet him afterwards and everything like that. And he was super cool and everything like that. It was like, well, it's not like just like a handshake, get out of here. It was like, is it a smoke? What's he going to do? Where are you going to be like, it was almost like kind of where it's like, do you need some extra money? You need some traveling cash? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there was like, what? There's barely even 100 people here.
I'm going to have to check him out because I got to be honest, I have no knowledge of him. Besides, like in the past, I've heard you and Nate talk about him before.
Yeah.
When we drove up. But he's
one of those ones, if you like Rob Zombie, if you like Motley Crue, if you like kind of that horror punk, Misfits, I would say is like, it's in that kind of similar. That's probably a better one than Offspring. Like when I said Offspring, that's the wrong one. No, combine Rob Zombie, Misfits, and Motley Crue all together, and a little bit of Steel Panther, even though obviously it's before Steel Panther. That's almost like what you get with Wednesday 13. It's just such a cool mixed match genre. And then you get Bourbon Crow, and it's like 100% different. It's literally just straight up country songs. And it's not like they're really like funny or anything like that. They're just like legitimate country songs.
Well, you sold me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm gonna have to check them out, like, because I'm always up to listening to music, of course. But
yeah, and then there's like he's got one where Gunfire 76. It's just like a one-off album. He just keeps changing band names. That's probably like I feel like that's almost like one of the things like by not sticking to like the same name. I mean, obviously Wednesday 13's been there, but he changes like band names all the time and things like that. That almost makes it kind of get lost, but. That one's almost like in that Skid Row style of like music, sort of, and like almost in that maybe even 80s, not necessarily like hair metal, but kind of rock and roll hair metal. I don't know how to best describe it, but it's really cool.
Yeah, so you sold me by talking about that he sings about movies and stuff. So.
Yeah, he's singing about movies. He's got songs about like Dawn of the Dead and Rambo and Evil Dead and all kinds of stuff.
A song about Rambo.
Yeah, dude, the song about the Rambo one's amazing. There's like 5 different versions because he's re-recorded that song like so many times.
Okay.
But there's even like a techno version of the Rambo song. But
okay.
It's all cool.
See, I remember like I heard you and Nate talking about him on our trip, and you guys kept talking about Marilyn Manson this, and I think Nate mentioned Rob Zombie, so I kept thinking of John 5 and like getting them mixed up, and I was like, I love John 5, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then now I'm realizing it's totally different artist completely, so it gives me some homework to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's one to check out, but I know your number one isn't a similar, but like the original one.
Yeah, the original shock rocker, Alice Cooper.
And I always say, like I always have this argument with people, but I always say Alice Cooper's the original heavy metal band. I don't care what anybody tells me. When people tell me Black Sabbath, no, it is Alice Cooper by far.
I can see that. Some of his early stuff, it's weird. It's definitely interesting to get through. Like his first album, I don't really listen to his first albums very often.
because they're like 60s progressive. It's like, have you ever listened to the original Ted Nugent albums? They're not called Ted Nugent. They're called the Duke Boy. God, I'm like the Duke Boy. But they have songs that you're like, oh, I've heard these songs before. Like, if you watch like a '60s movie or something like that, they'll like sometimes play some of those. But it's so weird because it's like, I mean, he's just playing guitar on them, but they're just picture Ted Nugent playing like literally hippie music. That's the best way to describe it. I mean, like that time period, what else were you playing?
And that's how a lot of it is. Like,
and that's kind of how those early Alice Coopers are too.
It's very Frank Zappa-ish to me.
Yeah,
like he's been
got
around.
The organ in there too. They're kind of like the Doors.
He's been around now for over 50 years, which is insane to me. I think he's 72 if I recall correctly, and he's still like, in my opinion, we saw him just 2 years ago. I've never seen anybody better live. Like Kiss had always been my cream of the crop, and then I saw Alice and was just like, literally instant. I was like, there is no way anybody's topping him. That's like when I said like when they had Alice opening it for Motley Crue, I was like, you shot yourself in the face with that one, man.
Well, sadly, Alice Cooper, he's another one of those guys who's never got as much credit as I think he sort of deserves.
Mm-hmm.
He's always been kind of like, I don't want to say like B-list band, but he always has kind of been in that same category. And just like Ted Nugent, I feel like Ted Nugent's in that same category too. They're kind of like, people don't think of them like as an A-list rocker. Like, like A-list rockers being like Kiss and Aerosmith and, the Rolling Stones and like the Beatles and so on like that. Then there's kind of like the B-list ones that's almost like once maybe those bands, but like once you kind of get deeper into it, that's kind of what Alice Cooper is. Because the average person doesn't really know an Alice Cooper off the top of or an Alice Cooper song off the top of their head,
Maybe School's Out in 18.
Yeah. But that's probably about it. But he's got so much good material through all decades too. He's one of those ones like that last Alice Cooper album.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. And there's like that song that's at the very end. It's like my favorite one on there.
Sound of A?
No, it's the one where he's pretty much singing like he's like a teenage girl. It sounds like the most weirdest one ever, but like that is such a good song. It's like weird because it just feels like an old man singing about being a teenage girl. But it's such a good song. Like, and that's the thing is like these guys come back and they're just killing it even more the farther they go down the line.
Well, for Alice, like, man, like, so my first Alice listening to was Trash. That album is really good. Yep. That's another close to perfect album.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a bad song on that one. But Poison has been my mom's all-time. That's my mom's all-time favorite artist is Alice Cooper. So growing up, that's what I listened to a lot was Alice Cooper because my mom loved it. Him and Pat Benatar.
Oh, so, she's really good at concerts.
Oh yeah. Like, not so much anymore. We saw her recently.
Did you see her at Ironstone?
Yeah.
I saw her there too. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, REO maybe just the REO Speedwagon was so good. And
yeah, REO Speedwagon was like that surprising. Like, I didn't think much. I was like, oh, whatever, REO Speedwagon. That's like I get. That's like those ones like I guess that's cool to say you saw, and then you're like, oh no, those guys are really good.
Yeah. Oh, REO's killer. Yeah, with Alice, man, like Trash was such a good album. And then as I've gotten older, I spend more time researching stuff, and like $1 Billion Babies is a really good album. Welcome to My Nightmares, amazing album.
Yeah.
And then, like, a couple of years back, he came out with Welcome to My Nightmare with the number 2, which is a direct sequel to that.
Yeah.
And he has a song with Kesha on it, which at first I remember being like, really, Alice? And then I listened to the song, and it's one of the best songs I've ever heard in my life.
So good.
And he had Along Came a Spider before that, which in my opinion is his best album. Like,
that's a good album, too, yeah.
I love that album.
But yeah, it's just like Alice Cooper does nothing but deliver.
And he's so smart, like, bringing in all these young musicians to, like, surround his band with, and
then he's also, he always appears in movies every once in a while, on WWE and things like that. So it's like, you get Alice Cooper and stuff, but it's like, I always felt like he should be bigger than he really is, and it's just like, I mean, he's still, like, big, I mean, like, that's the thing about Alice Cooper. He's still got that, because I think it's serious thing. Once you get into Alice Cooper, you're, like, a fan for life.
Well, and the respect he gets from the musicians is like, it speaks for itself. Like, there's a reason he's Johnny Depp's favorite musician. Like, he's the one who inspired Kiss, him and the Beatles.
Yeah.
Like, he inspired Kiss's stage show. He's the original stage show, and he's still doing it better than anybody. Yeah, that's when he was supposed to open for Rob Zombie, and Rob Zombie said, absolutely not.
No, yeah.
I can't touch Alice's stage show. And this is Rob Zombie, who has a killer stage show.
Yep.
So the fact that Rob Zombie, who is in that A-list, like, mega stardom stage to do that is, like, that's really cool. That's a cool nod.
Yeah, that's almost like where Motley Crue said no. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's their farewell tour. That's a little bit different. That's more like, asking for it. But yeah, like.
And with Alice, too, he still plays for close to 3 hours. And it's just like, and with the neat thing about Alice, though, in comparison to Kiss spends a lot of time. You hear Paul Stanley, oh, yeah, and we're going to talk about this song now. This song came out at this time. Alice does none of that.
That's kind of good, because sometimes that's kind of annoying.
Here's this song, quick little costume change while she does a guitar solo. Here's this song, and it just goes on.
Yeah.
And
because you can talk a little bit, but you want to be careful. Some people can talk. I'll go back to the first one, like on Jim Croce, because on his live album, Like once again, it's all based off this one live album. This is the only thing I know. I don't think he's ever had anybody else record his live stuff. So he has this one album, and that's all you know. And he tells stories in between, and that kind of works because you're at like an acoustic concert. But for the most part, sometimes I don't like when this like, oh, let's sit down and talk for a while and go on and so on. But
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Paul Stanley when he gets into his storytelling mode.
Oh yeah,
it always starts off with, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
but
and, it's like Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen does a good job of doing that too, of like kind of talking and so on. But yeah, just be able to have that content, just song, and just keep going and going 3 hours. Because this is my problem about, and it's like this is probably not new bands' fault. It's probably just the way that they're booked and the way their tours go and so on. But like so many new bands, like they play for like an hour. I'm like, why? Like, you know what I mean? They could be like the headline act. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Trivium's like one of my favorite bands, and I almost want to have them on their list, and they'd be definitely like a runner-up for sure, because they're like my favorite like modern kind of, I guess you would say, metal band other than Avenged Sevenfold. But it's like I've seen it like 4 times. And it's like are they only allowed to play for like an hour? Like what the heck's going on here? Like even if they're the ones like headlining the show, it's like I want 3. They got 8 albums or so, or 7 or 8 albums. Like I want 3 hours of Trivium. Like go.
And with Alice too, he keeps the crowd guessing. So you know he's gonna play Poison. You know he's gonna play Schools Out. But he keeps you guessing because like he's gonna play the hits, but he's gonna squeeze in some pretty little B-list songs there. The last time I saw him, he played Busted, he played Cold Ethel, Elected. He closed with the Elected over Schools Out, which was I get it.
I choose Elected over Schools Out any day, but that's not me.
Well, that was going on during the election, so I was like, that's smart.
You know.
But like when he played Busted and Cold Ethel, I was just like, man, that's pretty cool. Like those are some. I would never guess to hear Cold Ethel played it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can't wait to see him tomorrow. I mean, I can never wait, but I can't.
It's gonna be pure amazing, yeah.
At Jackson.
I know. I drove by it the other day. And I was like, oh, there's that sign.
He sold out the Greek Theater last night, and now he's playing in Jackson.
Yeah, go figure. But yeah, that's our big old fat list of top 10 favorite bands. You want to throw a couple like couple little bonus ones in there, like runner-up bands, those bands that you almost kind of wish like.
Yeah, I got a couple. The biggest of the 2 runner-up bands for me, well, I wrote 3 runner-ups because I couldn't not do them justice. Was we talked about Offspring, so I won't mention them, but Lacuna Coil for me, and then Dokken, which it's hard to go wrong with Dokken, but then Tina Turner. Oh. She was a tough one. She was a tough one for me to omit off that list. I was like,
that's always a tough one there.
She's the queen of music for me.
Yeah, she that's one. I actually pull her up all the time on Spotify. Oddly enough, it sounds like a weird one, aside from the rest of the list that we had. But Tina Turner's got a lot of good songs.
Mm-hmm. Ike Turner really does too. I know I get why he's not really praised anymore, but that dude, man, if you listen to some of their old stuff, like especially their old stuff together, I have a live album when they're playing Proud Mary. Ike, some of those bass lines he gets in is just like it's really weird, and it doesn't fit the timing, I guess, quote unquote, but. That guy was one of the best musicians of all time. Yeah, and so good. I get why he doesn't get the praise, but but he was good.
At the end of the day, a good musician is a good musician. You can't deny that part. But for my kind of like runner-up bands is I'll say Pantera is definitely one of them. That's definitely gonna be on there. The Beatles is definitely like one of those classic ones because when I was a kid, that was my all-time favorite band. You know, before like I discovered a lot of the other stuff, it was Beatles all the way. And no matter what, I still always like the Beatles, you know. It's like as time has gone on, I've kind of like flip-flopped my list and so on. But the Beatles is still always classic. I still like everything that comes after the Beatles, too. I like George, Ringo, Paul, John, all their stuff. Good stuff there. And then another band I have to say that is like very close is Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and he's one of those other ones where, like, when I saw him live, one of the best shows. I mean, like, he was Motley Crue good.
Yeah, like I've heard that.
Yeah, like, he just had so much stuff going on. And he had costume changes, and he played like 30-something songs, you know. It's just like, and he had like, you know, like every music video, like he had the costume on. And what he did is when he went to go change, he played Weird Al TV stuff on there. So you never were bored. You weren't just standing around being like, what are we supposed to do? You know, he always had something for you to do. He came into the audience, and me and Cisco, he literally, when that happened, we pushed. Like, I didn't even, like, quite... In my mind, it was just, like, Weird Al's here. I, like, pushed him. Like, I was, like, parting the Red Sea to get to the Weird Al. And I went up behind Weird Al, put my hands on his shoulders, and we marched through the audience. And all I know is, like, I mean, we were probably still, like, teenagers at this time when I saw him. But still, like, there was, like... We were pushing, like, 10-year-olds down and stuff just to get there. So it just looked like a bunch of overgrown children, like, knocking all these kids out. But Weird Al was so good. Yeah. So good.
I would like to see him. Just one of those ones just to say I saw him.
I know his tickets started getting because since he's doing really good now. Now he's kind of expensive act. You know, because when we were seeing him there, that was kind of like it was on the White and Nerdy tour, but it was kind of that point where people were like, oh, it's Weird Al, is that funny guy still doing it again? He was kind of at that point where like, yeah, he had that song here and there, but whatever. So I almost want to say we got in sort of for free.
Oh, nice.
Because somebody, like my friend's dad, had a friend. He's like, there you go. Because I remember we walked in through the crew section. He's like, oh, this is awesome. But Weird Al, I always tell people that, I'm like, dude, if there's a concert and you don't pass up Weird Al like that, you will be blown away by how good it is. I know some people aren't always the biggest Weird Al fan, but he's one of those ones like, I don't care. I can go back to any Weird Al album through the 80s, 90s, 2000s. He has such good material. And then, like, especially when he does like original songs, people always forget like half of Weird Al's stuff is like original stuff. People always think the parodies and the cover songs, or the parody songs, but he's got a lot of his own original stuff too.
Does he do any of those live?
Not as many. He did a couple of them, but not a whole lot of them. He did like Albuquerque live, which was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, wow, that'd be cool.
I think that was his closer song. That's a perfect one. A good old 12-minute long song.
Yeah, the other band, like, because we're kind of touching on that, I really want to see Zappa play Zappa. And I know that Weird Al did some work with Zappa play Zappa. I don't know what he did, but I know that he was on with Dweezil Zappa on something.
Yeah.
And that'd be really cool.
Yeah, no, that would be one of those.
Steve Vai in there. And
yeah, it was so much good stuff going on there. But that's kind of thing how music is. There's so many bands, and it's kind of like, a lot of times as you go on to, like, I kind of float through genres, like, where, like, sometimes, it's like, I use, like, Motley Crue. I put them up as, like, number 2 on the list, but I really don't listen to Motley Crue nearly as much as I once did. But in, like, hindsight, like, I can still always throw them on and enjoy them, and it is that kind of classic band. I think mainly it's just they don't have new stuff for me to listen to, so I've kind of, like, burnt myself out on the stuff there is. It's even, like, Pantera and stuff, too. It's like, I listen to Living Daylights out of those Pantera albums, because that's all you're going to get.
Yeah.
Where when you get bands like Alice Cooper that you can always keep getting new stuff from, or you can always kind of go back and like, well, listen to this album again, and then you go, oh, what song I didn't really pick up on? It's when you just got so many, or like the Rolling Stones, when you just got those humongous lists, or Bruce Springsteen's great about that too. He's got a lot of those kind of just albums upon albums, and there's something to be said about having that. I always think for bands, the more albums you have, that's generally never a bad thing. You know what I mean? I've never really seen like a band that has too many albums, like, oh, it never like desaturates anything. It only makes it better. I mean, look at even Elton John. Like, dude, he recorded like something like 2 or 3 albums a year, like in the 70s, like when nobody was doing that, and they're all like good albums.
Well, it's like I just found like this band Gravedigger a couple years back, which is a phenomenal band. They're a really good band. I guess they're very big over in Germany, where they mostly play at. But I'd never heard of them until they played with Blind Guardian. Yeah. And then so I was like, I'm gonna check out a few of these albums. So I went to go to their merch booth. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a couple albums. And the guy was like, okay, which he like stared at me like I was dumb. He's like, which one? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, we have 22. I just was like, oh, that was literally 2 years ago. They've made 3 albums since then.
Yeah, you gotta give bands credit like that. And before we probably take off, I'm gonna give like 2 shout outs to bands that maybe in the future they could be like potential bands. Like they only got like 1 or 2 albums now at the moment, but 2 bands that I've just really dug on in like the last couple of years. One is Baby Metal. Baby Metal to me is like they got 2 albums I think right now, 2 albums and a live one. So good. Like that right there is like, oh my gosh, you take pretty much anime opening style songs, like that J-pop style, and you combine it with heavy metal. Perfect. And then another one is QQQ, and they opened up for Real Big Fish. And that's the other band that if Pizza Boys had a soundtrack, I would just take QQQ if I couldn't get Offspring. And I'd say QQQ is just almost as up there. And they only got 1 album, and it's this Canadian punk rock band. But what their songs are all about is just like, it's like, hey, let's go skateboarding. Hey, let's go get a pizza. Hey, let's go hang out. And it's just, they're all super relatable. They're super fun. And I'm waiting for their new album to come out. I don't know when it's coming out, but I listened to Living Daylights out of that first one, and it's so good. And it's spelled Pkeu 3 times. It's so weird. I
wouldn't have guessed that.
Those are the kind of names where you almost kind of like sometimes I feel like somebody needed to sit you down probably before you to say, are you sure you want to name it that? Like almost like a father sits down, like, are you sure? Is this what you want to go with? Is you're gonna name yourself something that people aren't gonna be able, like when they say it out loud, they don't know what you're really saying?
Well, it's like there's a band called Juju that I can't stand, but it's XIU.
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
like
awful.
You always got to kind of think about when you do funny spellings. I mean, I even think about that with like Pizza Boys, my comic, because I spelled the boys with a Z, and all I was thinking was like Boys in the Hood or Boys in the Men.
Yeah,
that was like literally what I was thinking. I'm like, well, if they did it, why can't I do it? Well, but that throws people off because every once in a while they type in boys and they don't get the same thing always. I mean, it's gotten better as time goes on. It's kind of auto-correcting itself to fix it, but.
Well, and as you know, like for anybody who hasn't read Pizza Boys, though, it's very urban, so. The Boys in the Hood reference is a very good.
The Boys in the Hood reference really doesn't fit whatsoever, but I just thought that was kind of like when it was like make it boys, like that'd be kind of cool. You know what I mean? But
I don't even know. I feel as if like every time I get excited about like listening to like new bands, it turns out they've been around for like 10 years. I'm just like, oh great. Like I love Fozzy right now. I've been really hooked on Fozzy, and I know they've been around for a long time.
He's like the original Steel Panther, really. At the end of the day, because that's what he was. They were doing Steel Panther stuff, and then they turned into like more of a modern rock band as time went on.
They are great. If you ever get a chance to see them, see them.
Yeah, really I'd like to see them live. That's one of those ones because they appear at a lot of those like festivals, and it's always kind of like that's like, oh, Fozzy's there, that'd be cool.
The only other band that like if I were to have to guess like that I would hope that could be in that all-time list is In This Moment. A Hailstorm. I'll say I really think Hailstorm is going to be the next big rock and roll band. They're getting big.
Yeah, Hailstorm's always big.
They're not small, but
and I'm gonna say
they're blowing up huge.
Yeah, I've never been into Hailstorm, but actually a band that close to my top 10 list is Ailstorm, spelled with an A. Pirate metal, like that's one of those bands. Like they got 4 or 5 albums, and they're all pure gold. They don't write bad songs whatsoever. That pirate theme never gets old because you know what? It always puts you in the mood to go journeying and conquer, and do the best things you can do in life. They're fun. They're funny. Their concert was awesome. Me and Buddy went to it, and it was pure amazing. Apparently, their one in Sacramento sold out already.
Yeah,
we bought tickets, and 2 days later, they're all gone.
I gotta say, like in hindsight, I really thought when I said I think I knew who your number one was. I thought it was gonna be Poison.
Really?
Yeah.
Poison's another one. I will say this: like, if I had a top 20, maybe I know we're just going on and on now because you could name bands forever.
Yeah.
Poison definitely would be because when I was in high school, it was all about that Motley Crue, Poison, Warrant was another big band to me.
Dude, I have
LA Guns.
I have to just say, I just saw Warrant back in May, and they were really good. Way better than I ever would have guessed Warrant would be live.
Rat's another one. Like those, all those bands right there. That to me, like I like to tell people, I'm like, dude, that was such my high school. And then when they say that, it's like, wait, how old are you?
Yeah,
had
a white snake jean jacket, brother.
Literally, yeah, that's all I had was like that kind of stuff. I had the jean jacket with all the patches of all the bands and everything like that.
I still never got one. I need to.
Dude, mine's like full of patches. Like I went the distance beyond other people.
I need to. I've been wanting to do it for like 12 years and just never done it. You should just do it
because it's like once you're like an adult, it's really like not nearly as hard to like when you're a kid. It's like, oh, I gotta shell out $5 here for a patch. But
it's more out of laziness at this point. It's like I have to find it. I'm a big guy. It's like I gotta find a 2XL denim vest. Like
and I mean like over time I just found like I got like a really cool Alice Cooper one on the back there. I got Guns N' Roses.
But it's one that I don't want like a pre-made vest because I want to like cut the sleeves off personally to make it look tougher.
Yeah, I always thought about cutting the sleeves off, but it's almost like I've had it for so long now. I'm like, maybe I'll just leave the sleeves on still. Mm-hmm. It was always that weird like, do you cut it off or do you not? Yeah. But,
you got to show your arms off, brother.
I know, exactly. That's right, brother. But, we should probably wrap it up there. That's a good place.
That's a good place to call it an end, yeah.
Yeah, you can let us know like how terrible you think our lists are or how great they are because they are.
I think it's an amazing list.
Any kind of comments or so on. But for this episode of Old Man Orange, you can go to oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, Pizza Boys comics, and so much more. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Buddy.
And we'll see you some other time.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Be sure to check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comics, animations, videos, and a whole lot more. You can easily support the show by buying something from one of our Amazon links on the website or in the show's description itself. Doesn't cost you a penny, but every single thing you buy from there just by using that link to take you to Amazon helps us out a bit. You can also really help the show out, though, by spreading the word the good old-fashioned way. And rate and review us on all the sites that you find this podcast. Anything from iTunes to Podbean to Newgrounds, YouTube, you name it. Any little bit helps. Give a sub and share it to your friends, family, any jamoke you see out on the street. You let them know about Old Man Orange Podcast. And be sure to check out the Old Man Orange comic book Pizza Boys on both Amazon and Comixology. Till then, we'll see you some other time.